across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight it is your chance to talk back. So I do want to talk to you about the King, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. Liberal Democrats want Sir Keir Starmer to prevent the King visiting the United States next month over Donald Trump's criticism of the British response on Iran, which is an interesting thing to ask for, because I wonder if this is where that King's soft power comes into effect. I wonder if that's when we see the real power of the King. He goes there, smooth things over for Keir Starmer, makes everything a little bit better, and then Bob's your uncle, right? Is that the right thing to do? Because if he cancels, then that's going to be a real thorn in Britain's side. That's going to be a real thorn in Keir Starmer's side. So I want to know from you whether you think the King should go, whether you think he shouldn't go, and what that says about Britain. I mean, it was interesting that the Lib Dems said, look, you know, British people are going to have to be paying an awful lot more for oil and products and food and things like that because of the US. Is this a time that the King goes and just sucks up to Donald Trump, because that's what Donald Trump's ego needs? Do you think that that would be the best thing for Britain if the King continued with his visit? I mean, apparently later on it was revealed that it hasn't been confirmed yet, but it's been pretty widely talked about that the King and Queen were going over there to meet with Trump at the end of April. So I'd be interested to know what you think. Is this a point at which we, you know, unleash the King to do his thing, or is this a point that we say, well, no, look at the mess you're making the Middle East, and that impact is going to be huge on us in terms of financially. I mean, that's the other thing as well. I want to hear from you if oil prices have gone up in your area. Particularly want to hear from you if you live in the countryside, because unlike us in cities, you have to buy. My sister has to buy oil for her heating by the litre. They turn up in a big lorry and they put all the oil in, and the price is there. It looks like it's probably price gouging. I don't know, but we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on as well. So I'd love to hear from you on both those topics. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Let me tell you what else is coming up on the programme. The fabulous Vincent Moss will be here to go through the papers and the news of the day. Robert Hardman's joining us as well to talk about the King going off to America and whether he should or shouldn't do it. Joe Mitchell will be joining us to discuss the oil and the stockpiles that we've got and triggering those and what that'll do to the oil price, which would send it rocketing even higher. So we're going to be talking about that as well. But first, let me just sort out this microphone. I don't know why it's behaving like this, and I've done my wrist in, so I can't move it. So I do apologise for the noise. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Ow! I'm going to do that for now. Is that better? That better? Sorry about that. I can't use my arm, so yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Of course, the war in the Middle East is still going on, and we've just heard from Donald Trump saying that it won't be much longer now. It'll be much shorter than he thought it was going to be. First of all, we heard a couple of weeks, then we heard 5 weeks, then we heard potentially a month, and now we're hearing that it'll be over much sooner. Whatever that means, I don't know. But what is he going to leave behind, and what state is the country the region going to be in, let alone Iran itself? It's all very well for Donald Trump to say, well, we've met our objectives, that's it now, or you're on your own. The other suggestion, of course, by Donald Trump is that we lighten or remove the sanctions against Russia, which, may I remind you, is still at war against Ukraine, so that we can have their oil. we'll just sell our morals down the toilet, shall we? Just get rid of them. We don't care. Let's just get oil. Well, whatever the cost, let's just get the oil. So yeah, there's mixed messages, all sorts of nonsense going on. In the conflict, day 10, Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE have all said that they've intercepted Iranian missiles. And Israel says it's detected more attacks. Qatar is really, really cross with Iran. Meanwhile, Donald Trump told Australia to grant the Iranian women national football team asylum, which they've already done, and they were going to do anyway. After reports that some players left remaining seeking refuge in the country. Well, a lot of them that are remaining are worried to leave Iran because of what happened to their families, so they're deciding to go back to Iran to save their families from being imprisoned or tortured or whatever. And talking of Trump, the US president said yesterday the new Iranian supreme leader is an unacceptable choice. Their chosen new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is the son of the former leader killed in US-Israeli strikes. Well, joining me to discuss this is Adam Lucente, who knows about the Ayatollahs, correspondent for Al Monitor, an independent Middle East news source. Adam, thank you so much for joining me again. It's a pleasure to see you. Let's discuss the new Ayatollah. Many saying he is more hardline than his father. That's hard to imagine. In what way is he more hardline?
Well, I think the main thing with that being hardline is his ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, which is the dominant military security organization in Iran. He's a cleric by trade. He studied theology like his father, but he served in the Iran-Iraq War with the IRGC, and that kind of started his ties to the organization. He didn't have a formal role in recent years. He worked for his father's office, more like behind the scenes. But those ties with the IRGC were very apparent, and he was actually sanctioned by the U.S. in 2019. They accused him of working with the IRGC on suppressing dissent at home and also maintaining ties to proxy groups around the region. So I'm not sure if he's more hardline, but he's definitely as hardline as his father. And it should be noted that all the people in contention for the post of supreme leader, they all had more or less the same views on these issues, on the war, on relations with the West and the U.S., viewing deterrence and force as the main way to achieve Iran's goals and not being as into diplomacy.
What's interesting is, I think, is the Iranian resistance to sort of a monarchy, if you like, the idea that somebody should be appointed or anointed as Ayatollah who happened to be the son of the former Ayatollah, and only one of three that's ever existed. How is that going to go down? Because this isn't supposed to be that sort of regime, is it?
Right. I mean, obviously the symbolism is important here on both sides. You know, the Islamic Republic replaced the Pahlavi dynasty, the rule of the Shah, which was dynastic. And there were reports in Iranian media, you know, opposition-leaning outlets that said that there was criticism within Iran over this, over Mojtaba Khamenei being named as a contender for the supreme leader position for that exact reason, that it would set up a, you know, hereditary system in Iran. There were other people being considered. One was President Ibrahim Raisi, who died in a helicopter crash a few years ago. So there weren't necessarily that many contenders, but I think what may have tipped things in his favor is, you know, his father was killed. The younger Khamenei, he had other family members killed in the war that started a few days ago. So there is some symbolism of, you know, the elder Khomeini is killed and then they just go back to business as usual, replace him with his son as sort of a message to the West that they're going to be defiant. So there is some symbolic value there as well. But those criticisms of it being, you know, a dynastic position in the future are definitely there. And it probably doesn't help the Islamic Republic's legitimacy in the eyes of some. But people's minds are basically made up within Iran over whether they support this regime, and that happened before the war.
So the regime under the new Ayatollah, will that get the backing of the whole of Iran? I mean, again, hard to imagine that those who've come out and protested and families of those who died on the streets protesting the regime are going to be thrilled with this.
No, it doesn't really change anything on the ground in Iran, you know, because he has the same views as his father. There were a few people floating around that may have been seen as more moderate, but especially with the country at war, coming off major protests and riots that were then violently suppressed by the state, I don't think this is going to change anything. And we should also consider that he might not be in power for that long. Israel and now the U.S. have shown a knack for being able to take out senior Iranian figures. And there will definitely be a target on his back. And should he fall, that will create potentially more instability at the top of the leadership in the Islamic Republic.
What is the biggest miscalculation that certainly Donald Trump has made here? Look, it appears that he thought he would kill the Ayatollah and the country would roll over. That clearly isn't going to happen, and by the way, never was going to happen. So is this the biggest miscalculation that Trump made, do you think? That he doesn't understand this country and the Ayatollah and the role of the Ayatollah across all Shiite Muslims?
I don't know if it's a miscalculation. I mean, Trump said he wanted a Venezuela-style transition. I believe people were aware in Washington that this would be more difficult in Iran because of the complexity of the system. It's not just a figurehead at the top, it's the assembly of experts that picks the Ayatollah, it's the Guardian Council that picks the people who pick the Ayatollah, and then of course the IRGC. But the US can frame victory in different ways here. A regime change at the moment doesn't seem possible, but as the war continues with more pressure on Iran, on their energy facilities now being hit, it's possible you see some sort of collapse. There was that plan that now seems to be halted to send in Kurdish forces into the northwest. And in terms of degrading Iran's military capabilities, that's a more attainable goal than perhaps regime change is right now, because as we saw, Khamenei was taken out and now replaced promptly by his son. But there is an issue in Iran where you continue to lose these commanders, you lose their brain power. I mean, many people think that when the U.S. killed Qasem Soleimani, the IRGC's special forces head in 2020, some people say he was irreplaceable and that Iran wouldn't necessarily be in the situation they're in had he still been alive. So there is an issue where people get taken out and then it will ultimately hurt Iran in the long run. But the regime remains in power for now.
If Donald Trump declares game over, he's done, he's reached his targets, he's hit everything he wanted to hit, and then just walks away and says, right, well, we've done our bit now it's up to you, which is exactly what I can hear him saying. What happens in Iran next?
Well, you will have a weakened Iran, but it depends how Iran would respond to that. They might take that as a victory themselves and say, oh, we defeated, we survived. Because Iran's goal here, it's a different, measure. Yeah. They're looking to survive this war. They could declare victory as well, but, while their military capabilities would be degraded if the war ended today, they're still showing ability to hit the Gulf. They're still showing ability to hit Israel, and, even beyond that, the British base in Cyprus was hit a few days ago. So it wouldn't necessarily be a complete victory. You could just see that Iran was weakened, but it would depend how Iran would respond to that.
And Qatar, I mean, they're now going, well, you've let us down twice now, and now they've made more enemies in the Middle East, haven't they? I mean, this is not just about America and Iran anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Iran had decent relations with a lot of these Gulf states, before this war. They always had ties with the UAE, even though the UAE is close with Israel. Saudi Arabia, of course, has been very suspicious of Iran for a long time, but they normalized ties a few years ago, and with Qatar, they share a major gas field. What this has done, and I'm sure Iran knew this, but it's basically turned the Gulf back against them in many ways. They're not joining in on the offensive part of this war, but they are working very hard defensively, of course, to protect their own territories. And they're speaking very harshly about Iran now, and that kind of okay relations they had with Iran has basically been set back a long time by this. But the way Iran sees it is these diplomatic relations they had with these Gulf states, they didn't prevent the war, they didn't convince the U.S. to not do anything, so Iran feels that they need to make everybody pay, make the U.S. pay wherever they are, make Israel pay. And if that means sacrificing the relations with the Gulf, well, then so be it. That is the view.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Adam Lucente there, correspondent for Al Monitor, an independent Middle East news source. Well, looking at what could come next, let me introduce you to Professor Julian Richards, security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Julian, sorry, good to see you again. Look, we've just heard from Donald Trump. It's going to be a short-term excursion, he called it. I'm not sure if he used the right word, but short-term. But what is he leaving behind?
Well, a very considerable amount of turmoil, potentially. I mean, as Adam has just said, the It's changed the dynamics of the Gulf countries opposed to Iran. They had their own complications with each other for some years recently, Saudi, UAE, and Qatar. But what this has shown is that this has united them to some extent against the common enemy, Iran. Bahrain and Qatar particularly are extremely angry with the way that Iran has attacked them when they've been trying to keep a lid on things and keep a diplomatic calm. So it's upset a lot of the dynamics in the Gulf region. And of course, the economic consequences are perhaps some of the most dangerous and worrisome for all of us, really. We've already seen the oil price shooting up. The continued economic turmoil that might affect all of us after Trump and the Americans move out could be a very significant thing for a long time to come.
Yeah, I mean, and also Iran, if it is, well, it will be left in a depleted state. It's not going to be fondly sort of allowing the Strait of Hormuz just to pick up business as usual, is it?
No, and you know, that waterway, as we've all come to see in recent days, if we didn't know already, is an extremely vulnerable waterway. It's very narrow. If Iran was determined to block it and cause a great deal of turmoil, it can do so, and it will require a big military presence to try and unblock it. So that's a really big worry, and we really shouldn't underestimate the revolutionary regime's determination in Iran. This isn't Venezuela. I think Trump was very pleased and cock-a-hoop with how quickly he went into Venezuela and changed things. He thought he could do the same with Iran. There's one thing that the Iranians are, the regime are, and that's absolutely determined to keep going until the last drop. So they won't be rolling over anytime soon.
And of course, they don't mind being martyred for the cause either.
No, martyrdom is a central aspect of their whole ideology, their whole identity, particularly the revolutionary regime. It goes right back to the early origins of Shia Islam, that martyrdom is a blessed thing and is an important part of their identity. So again, as Adam said, the fact that they may have got through this and survived, albeit severely denuded, will be seen as a tremendous victory for them. So there are big risks with having started this, with Trump walking away from it, without the job finished in any conceivable way.
Now, I mean, presumably that will depend on Trump, how it's going down at home, the cost of this, $1 billion a day we're hearing, and all of those things. So he'll make that calculation. But what if he goes the other way? What if he does decide that regime change is the ultimate goal, that is the thing that he needs in order to say that he has proper victory over Iran? We all know now that cannot be done with air strikes alone, that there would have to be boots on the ground, and he hasn't ruled it out, right? He and Pete Hegseth, they've not ruled it out. All Trump has said that we're a bit of a way from that yet, but it could happen. If he were to do that, my concern has been lately just thinking about the triggering of Article 5, NATO, to say, look, America has now been attacked on sovereign territory. We want help with the ground war, because he knows that it won't be popular if just American troops go in. Therefore, I'm triggering Article 5. That will be a real test for NATO, won't it?
It will be, and given the backdrop of Trump's attitude towards NATO over the last year, it would be a tricky one for him to do a 180-degree turn and say, right, NATO, we need you to weigh in on our behalf. So, and we've seen, even though Turkey, a NATO member, has been kind of attacked a couple of times recently, a couple of missiles have headed Turkey's way. One of them actually landed in Turkey today. There's been no talk. The Turks haven't said that they at all want to trigger Article 4, which is the precursor to Article 5, where the NATO members discuss the possibility of a joint action. They're not interested in that. The NATO Secretary General has said that's way off the table at the moment. So it would be difficult to see it manoeuvring in that direction, given the backdrop, and especially so given the way everything Trump has said about NATO, and the solid indication he's given that he thinks he can do this alone, or at least with Israel's help.
But for him, it would be almost a win-win if they did go 4 and then 5, because if people refuse, which you can do with the triggering of this article, everybody thought you had to join. You don't. You can have very good reasons, and one of them, I would imagine, is the legality of the war. Then he could say, well, see, I told you they wouldn't support us. We're pulling out of NATO. So either way for him, it would be a good test bed and prove something to Donald Trump.
He could play that game. Of course, it'd be a very high-stakes gamble, but to be honest, that's who Donald Trump is, really. Yeah. And that's what he's done, and he's said and done things to and about NATO over the last year that nobody would have imagined before.
Exactly.
So he could do that. I think it's very unlikely at the moment. I mean, it would have to be triggered by a NATO country actually being attacked. And apart from the British sovereign base and Turkey, a couple of missiles dropping in there, that we haven't actually been attacked yet. But who knows? The one thing that is certain about President Trump is you cannot predict which way he's going to go.
Do you see this ending? We keep hearing the term off-ramp as well. Is there any way that this ends that is acceptable?
Well, yeah, it's difficult to see at the moment. I mean, going back to what you were asking earlier, Petrie, the regime change, it is possible that the Israelis, of course, are the other key factor here. They're absolutely determined to see the collapse of the Iranian regime, and they're taking this opportunity as a really good chance to put the foot down on the pedal and finish them off once and for all. So it is possible that if this bombardment continues, that Iran could be so seriously shattered and its capabilities shattered that there was some sort of collapse. But all that is likely to unleash is the sort of chaos that we saw in Iraq, really, because it's such a complicated place. There are so many competing factions. The remnants of the regime will be absolutely determined to hang on to power, or at least to get it back again if they were temporarily ousted. It really is difficult to see anything other than a rather chaotic situation in a strategically very significant part of the world. So the easy off-ramp is hard to see at the moment, I have to say.
Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Professor. Professor Julian Richards there, security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight it's your chance to talk back. And I want to know about the Lib Dems saying that the King Charles should not go and see Donald Trump at the end of April. And actually I'm wondering if that's the right thing to say. Look, he's saying it from the point of view of, well, you know, he's messed up all of our cost of living, he's made world much more unsafe, and he's making British life much more expensive. The King shouldn't go. Plus he's been saying horrible things about Keir Starmer and saying, you know, horrible things about Britain. The King shouldn't go and support that. But isn't this really what the royals do? But I mean, poor King Charles having to go there with Queen Camilla and, you know, fundamentally suck up to Donald Trump because he's really impressed by the King. So maybe, just maybe, it will help with our special relationship. So give me a call, let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000, and you can text TALK and then your message to 87222. But right now we're giving you the chance to win 2 hospitality tickets to the British Grand Prix on Sunday the 5th of July. Racing Green Trackside Experience. This is the ultimate setup for race day. You'll get exclusive grandstand seats at the Loop and the Village Corners, plus inner track access to watch the drivers arriving at the paddock, and access to the hospitality shuttle bus for easy on-site transport, racing simulators and live music between sessions, all-day street food and an open bar. Who could want anything more? Listen up to find out how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 20th of March 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie. Well, we know that this ongoing conflict in the Middle East is having an effect on oil, but why and how? The group of 7 G7's finance ministers and the International Energy Agency held a conference to discuss the alarming surge in oil prices as it reached nearly $120 a barrel before falling back to just under $100 a barrel. The leaders have said they're ready to take all necessary measures, but ended without an agreement to release strategic crude reserves, which was really why the oil price stabilised it there, because if they'd said they were going to release reserves, the oil price goes up. The UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves warned petrol, diesel and heating oil retailers not to take advantage of the surge in prices. She also reassured households that the UK energy price cap will fall in April as planned before the Middle East crisis erupted. But can she really promise that? Well, joining me now is Joe Michel, Professor of Economics at the University of West of England. Joe, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Let's first of all talk about those stockpiles. This was a real calculated decision that the G7 made today.
Yes, the G7 met amidst some very dramatic trading in oil markets. As you said, hit $120 overnight. They ended with an agreement to stand ready to release reserves, but didn't actually pull the trigger. But that was enough to at least calm oil markets somewhat. But in the last hour or so, what we've seen is at least one statement from President Trump where he appears to have said something along the lines of the war is nearly finished or nearly over. And then we saw some very dramatic further falls in the oil price and stock markets rebounding. But we've also seen a statement in the last hour from the Israelis, as far as I can understand, saying the war is far from over. And of course, nobody seems to have asked the Iranians their view. So the situation is extremely unclear. But what is clear is that as it stands, very little oil is coming out of the Straits of Hormuz, that's strategically important region that brings oil out of the Gulf states and Iran. And as long as that remains the case, there is very little that can really be done. Strategic reserves can be released, but that's a relatively short-term stopgap measure. So everything depends on what happens on the ground. And at the moment, nobody seems to have any idea what is going on, including the top levels of the US administration.
Interesting, though, that even just saying that the war is nearly over, it doesn't mean we go back to pre-war status. So you've got the countries that are not producing oil at the moment because they've got nowhere to store it. All of the 300 million barrels of oil, which is a hell of a lot of oil. So it's going to take time to. None of this is over just because Donald Trump says it's over.
Absolutely right, and it depends how long this goes on before we get some kind of easing of hostilities. As it stands, there is still oil being pumped out of most of the Saudi oil fields into storage, but that storage is filling up very quickly. And when that storage becomes full, they will have no choice but to close those oil fields, and then reopening them is an extremely time-consuming and costly process. Could take a month to reopen. So the longer this goes on, the harder it is to reverse. We also don't know what damage will have been done. This is one of the things we've not really seen before, is the damage that's been done to the oil facilities of Gulf countries by Iranian attacks. That damage could take a substantial amount of time to reverse. So there's a huge amount of unknowns here, but the potential worst case scenario is, of course, quite severe. It's a scenario with prolonged elevated oil prices and all of the negative effects that imposes on the rest of the world and the global economy. And
of course, going back to the Strait of Hormuz, there is likely to be proxies who are wanting to take revenge for Iran and could render the straits unusable for a very long time.
Right, we just don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. I think as the intensification of oil trading becomes apparent, and as the price rises, I think it is quite likely that President Trump, at least, will begin to realize that this is going to be deeply unpopular at home. Americans are going to see gas prices rising at the pump. It's
psychological for the Americans, isn't it? The price at the pump is one of the biggest things that they look at.
Right, and there seems to have been good evidence that the price inflation, the post-pandemic cost of what we're calling the cost of living crisis over here in the UK, was a big element in Trump's election. People were unhappy with inflation in the wake of the pandemic, and that led to Trump's election. So he's in a sticky situation there. His supporters don't like inflation. They don't like higher gas prices. They don't like Middle Eastern wars. One of the MAGA sort of slogans was no more Middle Eastern wars before his election. So it's possible that those things put pressure on Trump and he begins to change his mind. But it's far from clear at this point that he can turn off what he started. If you start a war of this type across the Middle East, at least 10 countries currently involved, Israel heavily attacking southern Lebanon, Iran attacking the Gulf states, it's very difficult to turn that off. It's not like tariffs where Donald Trump imposed tariffs. We saw stock markets substantially falling, and then he quickly sort of chickened out and turned around and removed the tariffs. It's much harder to back out of a situation like this where you've set the Middle East ablaze.
I mean, and even if he does say, right, we've done our job, we're done now, over to you, the chaos that's been left behind is not just fixable in a matter of days or weeks.
Indeed, it's very unpredictable because there was quite a delicate balance in the Middle East between Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and other states. And that balance has been absolutely shattered in the last week or so. So how it pans out is anybody's guess. And it's not really, I think, in the US power at this point to just say it's over. We want to switch it off. We want the oil to start flowing again. So it's really one for the military historians and the military experts to keep track of the events on the ground. As an economist, all I can say is that the longer the oil price stays high, the more damage that's going to do. And it's going to be not just petrol prices at the pump, it's going to be food prices, it's going to be general price pressure. Construction uses a lot of cement. Cement is very energy intensive. Anything which uses energy is going to go up in price, which means more than a few months of this, and you're looking at widespread global price pressure, potentially declines in growth, even recession in some countries, at the same time that central banks then may feel that they have to raise interest rates in response to the inflationary pressure, which puts further downward pressure on growth and economic activity. So the potential is very negative here if the situation is not resolved on the ground.
Yeah, and even the Bank of England has already said, look, we were looking at cutting interest rates, but we're holding them now with the potential of a small rise towards the end of the year or even next year. There is one solution to this, and Donald Trump has already talked about it. Vladimir Putin looks thrilled about it, and that is to lift sanctions off Russia. That is one potential solution. They've got a huge amount of oil and gas, which is what we need. Is that going to be an acceptable decision?
It seems to me a deeply it's not what we want, is it? I mean, no. It's a gift to Putin in his war with Ukraine. Even having oil prices at this level without any change in the sanctions, that's a huge amount of extra revenue. Could make a big difference to the Russian economy, which is under a lot of pressure. Is it going to be acceptable for the US to lift sanctions on Russia? I mean, that's a political question rather than an economics question, but in my view, I find that extremely difficult to accept.
Yeah, the thing is, though, we are so attached to oil, aren't we, and gas, that we need it. But he's saying he doesn't want this politicised and he wants to sign long contracts, which sounds to me political. One question I did want to ask you, Joe, because I was reading about this at the weekend, that there is a magic number at the cost of a barrel of oil, which does impact the world, the whole world's economy. And I was reading that it was about $150 a barrel, that there is this point, there's this magic number that you guys look at, that beyond which is disastrous. Is that a thing, or was I just reading the wrong thing?
No, I think that's right. And actually that number is probably quite a lot before $150 a barrel. That number was quoted by the Qatari energy minister over the weekend in a fairly apocalyptic sounding statement that this war could bring down global economies. A simple way to think about this is that oil at about $80 a barrel is not really much of a problem. Some price pressure, you'll notice it at the pump, but we'll just carry on for the most part. Once you get to about $100 a barrel, then you're looking at meaningful increases in inflation and reductions in economic growth. And then you've got a difficult situation. Central banks are weighing up their options. Governments are figuring out how to respond. Once you get to about $120 a barrel and past that, then you're into a situation of bad news all around, effectively, and serious economic impacts, serious inflationary pressure. And at that point, you get domino effects, and it's very difficult to say exactly how it will pan out. As we saw at the end of the pandemic, when we had that big price shock, there were lots of subsequent shocks which you wouldn't have predicted at the beginning. So I would say anything past about $120 a barrel is a serious negative situation for the global economy.
And of course, we saw very nearly that price today. It did fall back and has fallen back, as you were saying, a little further. But it doesn't take much, does it? The market is very sensitive at the moment and very nervous at the moment. And if Europe did have to tap into the reserves, we could very well see those prices go beyond that.
Yeah, the trading in oil today was unprecedented. The swing was something like close to $40.
Wow.
Between the peak of about 120, and it came back down about $40 lower at one point in response to Trump's statement saying something about the end of the war is coming. I actually can't think of a historical precedent for that kind of scale of trading. What that is saying is that people have no way of pricing this. They just don't know how to process this information. The fact that Donald Trump appears to just make things up on the spot. There's no kind of clear strategic vision. There's no statement of the war's objectives. And so traders just do not know what to do. So you could see very wild swings. You could see tomorrow if Donald Trump says, actually, epic fury is back on and the Israelis make aggressive statements and we see some more destruction, it could easily go back to 110, 120 tomorrow morning. So it's a very difficult situation. Markets really don't know how to trade this.
Yeah, and I guess when we're talking about oil and Iran, we have to talk about China. It's being incredibly quiet about all of this, because the Iranian bombing will, of course, have impacted China's ability to get hold of their oil. They use an enormous amount of oil. The Strait of Hormuz is very important to them. What are we going to see them doing? Are they going to increasing their trade with Russia? Are they going to be? What are they going to do? Yeah,
a lot of oil from the Gulf region does go to the east. They're the biggest buyers.
Japan as well. Yeah.
Korea. Yeah. That's right. But the thing is, even though a large amount of that oil goes to the east, the price is still global. The price is set by that last barrel which is sold, and so it affects everybody. Even though the direct buyers tend to be concentrated in the east, not exclusively. Germany and Italy, for example, are big buyers of Qatari liquid natural gas. Europe is in actually quite a sticky situation on the gas front rather than the oil front.
Yeah.
It looks for now as if China is trying to sit it out and wait and see what happens. China does have quite large strategic reserves, so it probably is of the view that it can afford to wait and see for the meantime, because it can release.
But even then, they would only have a month or two, wouldn't they? I mean,
exactly.
They haven't got years of oil. They've got. I mean, Japan has got, I think, 8 months before they completely run out. But China will be only a couple of months ahead, surely.
And after that, then they have to start making decisions about who do they talk to, what deals can be made. But ultimately, if there's a shortage of oil and the Straits of Hormuz remain closed, there's only so much that can be done. Even if you go back to Russian supplies, the global shortage is still going to be there. So ultimately, the problem is going to remain.
It's absolutely fascinating to me, Joe. Thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed that. Joe Michel there, Professor of Economics at the University of the West of England. Right, quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about the King.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and coming up at the top of the hour we have Vincent Moss, who's going to be going through the papers and the news of the day with us, so he'll be here at the top of the hour. In the meantime, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, has called for King Charles's official visit to the United States next month to be called off. The monarch and the Queen are set to visit the country as the US celebrates the 250th anniversary of its independence, but calls for the state visit to be cancelled are growing over the US president's attacks on the British government. Meanwhile, it's business as usual for the King as he attended the annual Commonwealth Day service in London today, the biggest gathering of senior royals since the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor last month. And of course there were the anti-monarchists outside holding up signs saying, "What did you know?" or "When did you know it?" So to discuss this further with me is Robert Hardman, Daily Mail columnist and author of Charles III, The Inside Story. Robert, good to talk to you again. Let's first of all address the issue of those signs that were held up today. This is something that King Charles is kind of getting used to, right?
Yes, good evening, Petrie. Yes, they're a small pressure group called Republic. They're very good at making their presence known and felt. They have very big fluorescent signs. They don't really number a particularly large chunk of the crowd, but I mean, obviously, we in the media are always sort of looking for talking points. I did notice that they were there when I went inside Westminster Abbey, and when I came out, they're gone. So I think they don't have much staying power. I mean, so they were there to greet the King on his arrival, but maybe they had important business elsewhere to attend to. But anyway, they're gone by the time he came out. So I don't think we could call it a terribly serious protest. But they're entitled to make their point, and it's quite true that a small minority, but a significant minority of people in this country don't subscribe to the idea of a hereditary monarchy.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor issue is one that has caused a great deal of embarrassment to the royal family and continues to do so, and even new pictures out today.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, this is a saga that's actually now in its 16th year, Andrew and Epstein, and there are new details keep emerging. But I think the King certainly reacted when it was made clear that Andrew had been lying about his relationship with Epstein. The King, I think, took us all by surprise with the severity of his action against his brother, not just taking away his titles, but all his honours, his birthright as prince, his house. I mean, it was full on degradation, if you like, and that's pretty much all he can do. I mean, there are certain levers that the monarch has at his disposal, but a lot of these things actually are a matter for government, not for the King.
Yes,
People
absolutely.
say, why is Andrew in the line of succession? Well, that's not for him. That's not for the King to decide. That's for Parliament.
And that's an interesting point because, of course, it's the Commonwealth has to agree to any removal of Andrew being in the line of succession before the government can do any. And we've already seen some action, haven't we? I think from Australia, Canada. Is it New Zealand as well? There's been a couple that have come forward.
There've been a few.
Yeah.
Yes. It all gets quite confusing because I mean there are actually 56 nations in the Commonwealth, but of those, 15 have the King as head of state, including Britain, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Jamaica, and others. Those 15 are the ones who have to decide and have to agree unanimously to change the laws of succession. I mean, I'm quite sure they will, but they've all got other issues going on. To tell 15 legislatures around the world, look, by the way, could you make room for a piece of legislation to remove Andrew from the line of succession? Clearly no one's going to rush to his defence. But on the other hand, people might say, well, look, for heaven's sake, I think we've got more important things to worry about.
Yeah, if he was second in line to succession, then maybe it would be a speedier process. Well, let's have a look at this royal visit that apparently has not been officially planned yet, but it's certainly been talked about a lot. The question risen from Sir Ed Davey, and also there are other MPs now that are backing that, saying that the King should not go. But isn't this the King's superpower in a sense?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Petrie. I mean, look at the pictures that you're showing there at the time. I mean, Donald Trump is a very great fan of the royal family. I know this because I've just written a biography of Elizabeth II. It comes out next month. 3 months ago, I was actually at Mar-a-Lago talking to Donald Trump on this very subject. I'm not going to give away what's in my book, but it's very safe to say that the president is a huge fan of the royal family. He may have his disagreements with the British government, but he understands that there is a difference between the head of state and the head of government. And whether the King goes or not is entirely a matter for the Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister says, I don't want you to go, then the King can't go. But he is a public servant, the King. I think it would be insanity to cancel the visit. Just at the moment, we're trying to patch up the relationship. Why would you not send the one person who Donald Trump would really very much like to see on the White House lawn?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because there is a point at which, as some people are saying, well, look, we should stop sucking up to Donald Trump if he's going to be quite so, vile about us. But on the other hand, a lot of people are saying, well, actually, we kind of do need America to be a friend, and we know how fickle Donald Trump can be, and maybe this visit will just smooth things over. You say that he's able to distinguish between government and the head of state, but is he really? Does he really care as long as he's got the King's ear?
Well, he, as I say, he's a royalist. He's an Anglophile. I mean, he has his differences with the current incumbent at number 10. But I mean, that's something that has gone on over. Well, I mean, we could start back in 1776 when there was a fairly spectacular bust-up between the US and Britain, which led to the formation of the USA. And that anniversary is this year. It's the 250th anniversary of the USA. That's the reason the King is going. He's not going to discuss, who said what about whom last week. He's going to discuss this extraordinary alliance that's been going over the last 250 years. I would argue probably the most pivotal and consequential alliance in world history, the transatlantic alliance that won 2 world wars. That's what it's all about. So I think everyone's going to take the big picture. And as a biographer of the King's mother, I mean, you can point to numerous moments over recent times when the relationship between Downing Street and the White House has had its hiccups. And the relationship between Buckingham Palace and the White House has been altogether different. It moves at a different pace. I mean, there you see, those are 2 heads of state. They're not going to be discussing the minutiae of policy. They're going to be discussing broader issues, the sort of bonds that unite these 2 countries. Prince Charles, before he became king, I mean, he'd already met 10 US presidents. I mean, he had his first trip to Washington when he was 21. He had an hour and a half's one-on-one leadership tutorial from President Nixon in the Oval Office. I mean, this is someone who goes back a very long way. So I think we need perspective here. I hear what Ed Davey says. Of course, people are cross with what Donald Trump says. But as I say, if you're trying to patch up this relationship, HM King is the way to do it.
How will His Majesty feel about? Does he like Donald Trump? I mean, does he? I don't suppose he has to.
I don't know.
I don't suppose he has to. But does he? I can imagine that he'd be a bit.
Look, they're heads of state. You have to remember the royal family. Like I said, they're public servants. On many fronts, they'll agree. They clearly got on extremely well at their state visit last September. I mean, I was there for that. Donald Trump's the only US president to have had made 2 state visits to the UK. Like I said, I mean, I've met the guy, talked to him about his views on Britain, on the monarchy. Like anyone, he's got lots of different views on lots of different subjects. But on the sort of the history of Britain, you've only got to look at his his speech at his state visit, his state banquet speech last September at Windsor. I mean, it was a very, very fulsome, generous tribute to not just to the monarchy, but to Britain. One of the most sort of generous state banquet speeches. And you've got to remember that the monarchy, over the years, they have entertained everybody who the government has asked them to entertain. Donald Trump was an absolute delight, a positively, 5-star house guest compared to, say, Vladimir Putin, who came to stay in 2003, Nicolae Ceausescu, the monster of Romania, who came in 1978, was so disagreeable the Queen actually hid behind a bush in the garden to avoid talking to him. President Mobutu of Zaire in 1973,
I remember that.
His wife smuggled in a dog, and the dog had to be confiscated and sent into quarantine. I mean, the royals over the years have had some really pretty unpleasant house guests. Donald Trump was a joy.
Comparison. In comparison, yeah. So, do you think that this?
And he's, like I said, he's a great Anglophile, and he got on extremely well with the late Queen. And I think if you are in the business of monarchy, I mean, you meet so many different. You just meet different people all the time, and I mean, the bottom line is you're there to promote the best interests of Britain. And here comes your number one, most powerful, certainly ally. You're going to want to get on with them.
And is it the benefit that he's outside of politics that is the thing that works for him, the king, when he goes to these places?
Yeah, I mean, this is what sort of sets the dynamic, if you like, on most state visits, on every state visit, because it's one of the reasons world leaders like having meetings with the British monarch, whether it's the late Queen or the King, because you can just have these visits in a different format. What tends to happen certainly when an incoming state visit, a world leader comes here, they get all the pomp and circumstance, the personal stuff, the warmth, the pageantry, the cultural ties, the sort of emotional stuff. They get all that in their dealings with the palace and with the monarch. And then the next day, they tend to go around to Downing Street and do the sort of hardball bit with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary. When the monarch goes abroad, the Foreign Secretary usually goes with him or her, and that's the role of government. So, I mean, when the King, and I'm sure he will go, I'm sure this visit's going to happen. I mean, let's face it, Ed Davey, he's the man who boycotted the state banquet at Windsor. Making much the same noise about Donald Trump. I don't think anyone actually noticed he wasn't there.
Nobody would have noticed. Robert Hardman, thank you very much.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you, and of course coming up at midnight we do have the Talk Back Hour. So I want to talk to you about whether you think the King should actually go and visit Donald Trump at the end of April, or whether you agree with Ed Davey and say that he shouldn't go. Now look, it is, you know, whenever we talk about the royal family, I'm a bit meh about the royal family, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do recognise the soft power that they have. And maybe more than ever now, we need the King and the Queen to go to America, press the flesh, flatter the man, and try to get our relationship back into an even footing. But there will be others that think, well, hang on a minute, how many times do we have to suck up to this man? I mean, how many times? And I'm certainly there as well. I can't think of anything more embarrassing than seeing Keir Starmer. Do you remember giving him that letter? Oh, God, I was so cringy. To invite Donald Trump for his second state visit. And of course that was done in order to help us with the tariff situation, which didn't really help us that much. But Donald Trump duly came along. He had a bit of a watered down visit, didn't he? Because they had to go to Windsor because Buckingham Palace was being deep cleaned or something. I can't remember what the excuse was, but anyway, there was an excuse. And so he had to go to Windsor, which meant that he went on a little trip around. It was a bit embarrassing, really, a little trip around in a horse-drawn carriage, and he had to go back straight to where he was, and then it was all a bit, yeah. And he wasn't allowed for the second time to speak in Parliament. And in fact, Lindsay Hoyle had said that's not going to happen. So look, is it something that this is what we want our royal family to do, that the King and the Queen should go there, try and suck up to Trump a little bit more, try and get him to be nicer to Keir Starmer? Or are you with Ed Davey and think, well, look at the mess that Trump has created in the Middle East. He hasn't affected regime change. He's managed to get an Ayatollah which is more hardline than the last one. The Iranian people are not any more free than they were. And the whole of the Middle East is burning. And Trump says, well, it'll be over soon. What do you mean it will be over soon? What you mean? What, you're going to do another Afghanistan or Vietnam or Iraq? You're just going to go, well, we're done, over to you, which is, I suspect, exactly what he's going to say. Well, we've done our bit now to help you in the Middle East, to help the Middle East, and we're just walking away and leaving it in utter chaos. Worse position than it was in before he bombed. And even if you can hold two thoughts at the same time, you know, even if you thought that the regime in Iran was absolutely despicable and disgusting and needed to go, you can still think that what's going on in the Middle East is an utter disaster for which we are all going to be paying for a very long time. So is this the time we don't send the King as a message to Donald Trump to say, well, look, you know, everybody sucks up to you all the time. We're not doing it anymore, right? Or do we need that friendship more than we need any sense of personal pride? Who knows? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222 to go or not to go. Well, joining me now is Vincent Moss, former political editor. Vincent, there are two sides to this gold-plated coin, aren't there? Which way do we go with this?
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because Trump's deeply unpopular whenever he's polled in the UK. People don't seem to like him. People probably wouldn't be in favour of the state visit. But there's no doubt that when you do something that he wants you to do, you do get a better deal. So the transactional part of me thinks, let him go, let him do the state visit. We don't know how long it will last, but there will be an upside for Britain, or certainly a less bad downside, yeah, where we do okay out of it. Who knows where we'll be with tariffs and anything else, trade deals, who knows where we'll be in a few months' time. But generally speaking, the moment that Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, plays a trump card in offering a royal visit, tends to play quite well for us. My fear is that Trump will, I mean, he's already seen quite a bit of Charles. I mean, I think that the thing he'll really want is Catherine, because he's so Hollywood focused, isn't he, in everything he does. He might be thinking, well, it's always good to see the King and Camilla, but what I really want is the young Catherine and William over here. So, and I'm not sure they'd be very keen on going.
I'm not sure they would. I'm pretty certain they wouldn't. It's interesting. I mean, Ed Davey does kind of have a point, right? I mean, he may be clumsy in his way of presenting it, but certainly we are going to be paying for this war one way or the other. You know, with Iran very much destroyed, it doesn't mean that it's finished. And certainly they have proxies all around the world. There are sleeper cells all around the world. There will be payback for this war. There will be. I think it is idiotic and naive to assume that Iran is just going to be grateful that it's not being bombed by America anymore and everything will go back to the way it was. So this is now something that has set Qatar off against Iran again. Those friendships were very fickle anyway. You've got Saudi Arabia, the UAE, all of them now viewing Iran with deep suspicion. You've got the Kurds who will they go in or won't they go in? And that isn't up to Donald Trump. But then you're dragging Turkey into it because Turkey won't be very happy with that. So you've got repercussions and potential flashpoints across the Middle East, not to mention the price of oil, where you know it becomes disastrous once it goes over 120 a barrel. That is economic collapse around the world. So this is not just Donald Trump going, I finished, right, over to you now, you're on your own. This has repercussions for all of us for a very long time.
Yeah, terribly. And you can see Trump's giving a speech in Florida today where his narrative has changed again.
Yeah.
Because what he's now trying to convince people is that Iran was only days, a week or two away from a major attack. Now, that doesn't sound very plausible.
Intelligence
exactly. It's not what the atomic nuclear experts are saying.
No.
But I think he has to be saying that because people are asking the big question, why? You're not going to get regime change, which you really need to affect anything. So what you've done is spend a huge amount of money, caused chaos everywhere you've gone. So that's why he's trying to say that actually this will be good, or it needs to be done because there was an imminent attack. Again, there's no evidence for that.
I mean, even Israel isn't saying that. Israel had said we don't want them to have nuclear weapons, and Israel, I think, are a big player in this. They've convinced Donald Trump that this was an urgent matter. But he'd have to come up with some substantiated evidence for the rest of the world to believe that.
He seems to do quite well with not producing evidence on those things.
Yeah, that's true. But still, you know, we're looking at a situation now, and the fear is, of course, with Ukraine and Russia, is if sanctions are lifted from Russia, which I think will be wholly unacceptable, but pragmatic, in order to get their oil and gas, then you've got more money being pumped against Ukraine, which ultimately is then against Europe. You've also got the situation where Ukraine aren't going to get any more weapons from America because they've depleted their stock and they need to rebuild their stock. Other countries are now thinking the same thing. Can we really afford to give Ukraine any weapons because we need them, possibly? The ripple effect of this just goes on and on and on. The only country it doesn't seem to touch is America, who is also protected somewhat from the oil prices, not as much as it would like to be, but from those knee-jerk oil prices.
It is protected to some extent, as you say, because it's got its own reserves and its own sort of fuel systems. But the problem it's facing is a lot of the countries that it imports from aren't. And it's not just petrol prices that are shooting up. Petrol will force up the prices of fertiliser, which forces up the prices of food, forces up inflation's likely to go, as the UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves said today. That's likely to go up. We were hoping for an interest rate cut on March the 18th when the Bank of England meets. Now looks like that could even be a rise. So everything goes up, not just petrol, literally everything. Food, mortgage rates, the whole lot.
Which forces us into stagflation.
Yep. And that's why his language has changed, and he's talked about, used a phrase, an awkward sort of phrase, very complete, nearly complete, he's sort of suggesting. Has to say that because he's seen the economic impact it's having, and the moment he said that, the US stock markets did start to turn, and he needed that as well, because it wouldn't cause the sort of pain in terms of fuel that it would cause places like the UK, but it will cause doubtless economic pain and fuel inflation in America. So he's had to act. He's had to manage expectations. This won't go on for weeks or months, but he's hinting that it'll be over fairly soon. We've got those huge American bombers in Gloucestershire at the moment. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they're the kind of one of the last waves to sort of restrike or strike some of the bunkers where they think a lot of the nuclear research and work is going on. And once that happens, I think Trump will be keen to extricate himself again and move on to his next adventure.
In Cuba.
Well, exactly. He's done Venezuela. He's sort of set the Middle East alight, and perhaps Cuba's next in his sights. And again, this doesn't play well with his MAGA base, does it? Because they don't like these foreign adventures.
No, they don't like the foreign adventures, but the hardcore MAGA are not going to turn their back against Donald Trump. As he knows, he said I could walk down the street and shoot somebody dead and they'd still vote for me. So he knows he knows who they are. But I think that the petrol prices at the pumps is a real psychological thing for Americans. It's a huge deal if they see petrol price, which is why it keeps going on about, oh, petrol prices are down at $1.99 a gallon. It must be over there, a gallon. But they're not. And then people are going, well, no, they're not actually. They're not down that. There's one day, one state had that price, but it's gone up since then. But that is a real psychological barrier for them. It's not quite so much for us here, although we notice it, but for Americans who've always prided themselves on having cheap petrol and being able to drive these massive cars and that we couldn't even afford to fill, let alone drive. For them, that will be a big issue. And as much as Trump is kind of protected a little bit, like you said, there is a knock-on from everything else.
Very much so. In America, they rely on their cars, very little public transport, and then a lot of them are used to driving vast distances to get from A to B and to see relatives, less so that we aren't as impacted over here. And also, fuel has been relatively cheap in the UK for a while, but it was due to go up, and the Chancellor has declared in her last statement that she was going to reintroduce the fuel duty escalator. It's been frozen for years, gradually start putting a penny or two on the price of petrol over the next few months. And she's under pressure already from the Conservatives not to do that, because petrol is already spiking here and is set to go even higher the longer this conflict goes on. Yeah,
and people are now being recommended not to drive as much, are they? Earlier on during the press conference, Trump said on Cuba, it may or may not be a friendly takeover. So he's talking about taking over Cuba.
Yep. What he seems to like are these leaders he can do business with. He seems semi-satisfied with the outcome in Venezuela. He's not.
Well, it's not regime change, is it? It's the same people. It's his deputy. People.
But certain people seem to like more than others. He is the deputy, but he seems to be a bit more content with her than he was with the previous one. And the problem seems to be with Iran, especially at the moment, is he's saying, well, he doesn't like Ayatollah Khomeini's son. And he's just as bad a guy, and he seems to be even more hardline than his father. But he won't identify who he would like, and has suggested that he'll kill all the ones he doesn't like. I mean, it's not exactly a great plan,
But he's going to have to go in on the ground to do that.
But that would mean American casualties, and that's very hard.
That's why I was asking earlier if he could trigger Article 5 or Article 4 and then 5 to get everybody involved in that. That's my big worry over the weekend. There's some latest news here. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have said that Arab and European countries will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz from tomorrow if they expel US and Israeli ambassadors from their territory. Shipping through the waterway, one of the most important trade routes in the world, has all but stopped after Iran threatened to attack any vessel attempting to pass through, sending oil and gas prices soaring. But they won't allow American, anything that's attached to America or Israel to go.
But I'm not sure that people will concede to those terms anyway, will they?
I'm not sure they will. I'm not sure. Well, they might. I mean, who knows? It's getting, the oil situation. We suddenly realise just how married we are to that resource, and they're getting close now to having to stop production under a force majeure ruling. that means that, because otherwise they wouldn't be allowed to stop production, but they can if it's external influences. So if you stop production and you shut down an oil producing plant, if it hasn't been bombed, that takes time to wind that back up, and we're going to be missing out on millions, hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, which will send the price again.
That's right.
Skyrocket.
I mean, we saw the pain it caused us when the Ukraine war started, and
yes.
the way we were starved of oil then, and there was an argument. It doesn't irritate people who are anti-net zero, but the sooner the UK can become independent and not rely on overseas imports, and whether that means wind, waves, solar, or whatever it is, whatever your ideological view of those things, there has to be a huge nuclear, of course.
Security.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest challenges facing the UK. Fuel and also food security. Food, fuel and water. Yeah, and if you can supply those things, at least you're not at the whim of foreign powers.
Exactly.
And at the moment, we very much are.
We very much are. I mean, and you've got to wonder as well, with the GCC countries, they are, having their desalination plants bombed, and that was something that I was talking about last week, and saying that none of these countries are all desert. Saudi Arabia, Oman and all that, they're desert. They don't have any water, so they have to take it and desalinate it. And you start bombing those. And also all of their food arrives through the Strait of Hormuz. So you're going to be starting to see food shortages.
Exactly. It's a tactically...
it's a massively knock-on effect.
It is, and tactically a smartish target to hit. Because,
that's what I would do if I was Iran. Yeah. Not that I'm supporting them in any way, but militarily it is the right thing to do. Right, so we're going to be talking about whether King Charles should go and do his magic touch on Donald Trump, whether that is something that we can stomach, I suppose. We're talking about that at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Vincent Moss, former political editor. And Vincent, let's have a look at the papers and start with the Times. The Trump story: Iran has nothing left and the war is nearly over. President defiant as British households told to brace for soaring costs with fears of petrol at £2 a litre.
Yes, well, this is all part of him saying it's nearly over because he's really worried about the economic impacts, which we're already seeing here and is starting to hit America as well. And he's given this interview to CBS News and saying that the military's great, there's hardly anything left, they've really destroyed what Iran had. But at the same time, the Times is warning that prices could hit £2 a litre within weeks if the conflict continues, and it's already risen by 5p on average since it began, and that gas and electricity bills could go up by as much as £344 in the summer.
Wow. I mean, thank goodness we're going into the summer now and maybe things will stabilise. But, of course, these companies buy on the futures market, so they buy in advance. So whatever the guesstimate of the price is in 3 months' time is what they'll be paying, which is what's going to push the prices up. Because even if it goes down then, it's too late. We've got to pay for the expensive oil and gas that we buy now.
And people who are fixing, they'll be fixing based. This will affect the fixers. They get off for a year or two. So it pretty much means that even if the war does end soon, that people will probably end up with higher fuel bills.
But I don't know what the war ending soon looks like. I mean, it doesn't. It's not a case of just stopping bombing and everything goes back to normal. That for me is with Donald Trump saying we took a little, and also he's playing it down, which is disrespectful certainly to the people who've died. We took a little excursion because we felt we had to get rid of some people, and I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion. How good is our military? Just playing it all down. And also he's been talking to Putin, voicing a few ideas aimed at a quick political and diplomatic settlement of the conflict. And it's all, again, because Putin's got oil, it's like, oh, he's the answer.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be acceptable, is it?
Yeah, an
Not
hour-long call with Putin, which is incredible, really.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me with those two. We could see prices at the pump hit a record £2 a litre within weeks if the conflict continues. The gas and electricity bills, like you said, expected to go up by £344 in the summer. The price of heating oil... because the heating oil isn't... I didn't realise this, isn't part of the price cap on fuel. So heating oil, there's a lot of price gouging going on. People who are buying oil for their friend. I was talking to a friend of mine last night who lives in the countryside, and she said that she was playing Russian roulette a bit with it and wishes she hadn't, and then was running out of oil. And so she phoned them up and she wanted 1,000 litres and they wouldn't let her have 1,000. They said, no, we're not selling it at that bulk at the moment. But the price was double. So it would have been around £800-900, and it was £1,800.
Exactly, and prices haven't gone up that much.
No,
and it is
but it's a rarity value, isn't it?
Exactly,
scarcity value.
And people, if they need it, to put the heating on. But and I thought it was a relatively small amount of people, but it's about 1 million. So I think more than 1 million people who rely on heating oil. And if you need it now for your heating and hot water, then you've got no choice to buy it.
You've got no choice but to buy it.
And some places, I think it's actually unavailable. They're not even doing deliveries.
Yeah, they're not. And like I said, they're limiting how much you can buy at any one time. My sister uses heating oil as well. So that's, and we don't think about it in that way here, but a lot of people in the countryside use heating oil. Yeah. Because there's no direct link up to the system. So it's like, and those people are going to be really hammered by this. Anti-Muslim hostility policies risk splitting society, Labour has told. An official definition of anti-Muslim hostility risks worsening community tensions.
Yes, well, this is the Lord Wolney, who's a specialist in this area, and he's sort of telling the Times he's really worried about this new definition of anti-Muslim hostility because he thinks it'll just create further problems. And you've got Steve Reed, the Community Secretary, telling MPs he had a duty to act as he introduced this new definition. But again, it seems to be one of those things that it's meant to be sort of bringing people together, but it just seems to be causing further splits in society. Yeah, and it's always a very fine balance, isn't it? Slow journey to old age with a daily dose of multivitamins. Do you take multivitamins, Vince? I've taken them occasionally, but every article I've read on it, you read one that says they do you good, and then you read another one that says they're absolutely pointless. Yeah, absolutely. And this seems to be the day in the Times is saying that they do you good, and it claims in this Times article that taking it every day could really help you out and slow the ageing processes. This is an article in I think it's Nature Medicine, and they're saying after 2 years those who took the vitamins had a biological age on average 4 months younger than those who took the placebo. 4 months? Well, it's not bad, is it? It's not great. It's not great, is it, though? And the cost of them as well, they're really expensive. Yeah. Right, let's have a look at the Telegraph. The Trump-Iran war, very complete. The great picture there of President Macron heading off to Cyprus, I believe. With French president saying that it's really important that he goes there, that an attack on Europe is an attack on Europe, and that's why he's sending quite a few vessels there. Yes, and Macron seems to have won over on us at the moment, really, in terms of, unlike the UK, which is struggling to get a warship out there, and they've been much delayed, and although they're due to leave soon, I think the Welsh warship's due to go out in the next day or so.
The Dragon,
his are already out there, and I think that Macron has talked about potentially offering a French escort to ships through the Straits of Hormuz, which could be another solution to getting supplies going again. There's a sort of rather fetching picture of him there, and I think that's a helicopter, isn't it, by the look of it, as he lands on doubtless one of his fleet out there. So I think one of the things that it has shown, there is that contrast, is that we do look very underprepared in terms of the UK military.
I'm going to talk in defence of the military, of the British military, a little bit, because although Cyprus, Akrotiri is a massively important airbase, I've certainly flown out of there and into there several times, and it does have its own defences, and the British have been, for the last few weeks or so, been topping up those defences at the airport. What we've been slow at doing is responding with any Navy support. And they're talking about sending Invincible, I think, out there, which I don't know why they're talking about doing that, because it is all Invincible is, and some of the ships that France is sending as well, to be honest, are nothing more than mobile landing strips. Well, we're not short of landing strips.
True.
In that area. We don't, you know, you send Invincible where you need the takeoff and a landing point. And we've got Akrotiri for that. So I'm a bit questioning some of the military decisions, because I'm going, well, I don't understand why we need a landing strip. Literally, that's basically all Invincible is.
That's right. They look good, don't they?
They look amazing, but is that all we're doing?
No, and really, as Ukraine has shown us, the world's changed, and what you really need is things that can take down drones or drones.
Yeah.
And that's why the Ukrainians are involved, because they've become global experts in drone manufacture and drone warfare.
And how quickly Donald Trump has had to, you know, reshuffle that pack of cards he said that Zelensky had no hand in.
Yes.
Right? He said, oh, you haven't got any cards. And I think you'll find that his cards are actually now helping you.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. I do question some of the, you know, even with France, I think they're sending a helicopter ship that can, so the helicopters can take off there. I'm sort of thinking, why?
Yes, you've got the places, haven't you? And we've sent Typhoons out there, so we have sent some sort of kit out there.
Yeah, we have. I mean, it's just embarrassing, sort of naval-wise, and it is embarrassing. It's not. I've been saying for many, many years that we've been degrading our military, and it's because I've got such a close connection with the military, and it's disgusting what we've done. But in truth, there is defence there, and it has been there, and it's good that our allies are going there to support. But I'm just concerned about the kit that they're sending. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, OK, that's the Daily Telegraph. Middle East crisis hits home. Cost of war. Rachel Reeves vowed to help families. But how? You know, I mean, all she's done is warn people not to price gouge.
Well, exactly. She said she won't put up with it, but quite what she'll do to stop it is not clear. But at least I think the Mirror have highlighted the domestic element of this war, which is her statement in the House of Commons, where she talked about that, yes, this could mean inflation will go up. Well, that's almost certain the way things are going. It was on the way down from about 3% and now looks as though it will go up, and that it will mean potentially higher fuel bills, higher mortgage costs, higher food costs. But she did come under pressure, I think, because from the Conservatives, who use it as an opportunity to say, well, you know, you are raising the fuel duty escalator again, which has been frozen for years. So what are you going to do about implementing these things?
I mean, what this does is just make an absolute mockery of her spring statement, which even as she was delivering it was defunct. Even as she was delivering it, she knew that what she was saying wouldn't stand up.
No, well, elements of it wouldn't, but some things were on the right course. Inflation was starting to fall, and we could have got an interest rate cut.
But that's what she should have said. We could have done, and we might have done, but we're not going to now.
And then world events changed, don't they? And this was the same excuse the Conservatives had about...
But they were already changed when she stood up to speak.
That's true, yes.
I mean,
they got even worse.
I mean, she should have cancelled it and said, look, I'll speak when I know a little bit more about
that's
it.
True.
It just made her look a fool, I think, and not for the first time either. Right, we've got to take a break. Vincent and I are going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Vincent Moss, former political editor, and we're going through the papers, and a lot of it of course is to do with fuel prices and with Trump, and the I paper, no real exception. They revealed Trump dismissed the PM's Iran plea in a stormy call. This is, we know that Keir Starmer and President Trump had a phone call. Apparently it was very fraught. What Keir Starmer wanted to get across was, look, I'm going to support Britain in Britain's best interests. You're going to support America in America's best interests. Sometimes they're not going to add up. But apparently Trump is still fuming.
Yeah, not happy at all. Wanted more support from the UK, as we've seen with his recent comments. Not too impressed with what he felt was a lack of support or not enough help from Keir Starmer. And the I paper has got some of these allegations, saying the 20-minute call was not a rosy affair, and that tensions are mounting over the King's proposed state visit to America as the special relationship hits a new low, according to the I.
I've questioned the special relationship for many years. I think most people have, really. PM trying to use a trip and a meeting with Charles to soothe Trump's ego. So preparations for the visit are still going ahead, despite a growing rift between the two leaders. I mean, you would think that Trump, with his America First attitude, would at least respect another leader saying the same of their own country. But as long as it's against Trump, he doesn't respect that.
Exactly, and I think his America First strategy means you do what I say, that works in with America's priorities, not yours. And I think he was asking and expected Starmer to put his concerns for the UK side and support America regardless. Interestingly,
though, that although politically this has been another punch in the face for Keir Starmer, it appears through polling that most of the country is behind Starmer's stance on this.
Yes, I think so.
The polls are showing that the public are saying, well, no, we agree with you.
Yeah, at least 60%, I think, are saying they don't support Trump's action in the Middle East, and that number will only grow as long as it continues. So it does work. I mean, people always talk about, should Starmer be looking for his Hugh Grant sort of Love Actually moment with the American president? And this isn't quite it, but it's potentially almost heading there. And I think a lot of people...
Well, Carney's already had it, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Carney has already said, look, we're not friends.
No, but it didn't do his tariffs much good, did it? So, and it hasn't done relations good. So I think it plays well domestically to stand up to the Americans, but it doesn't do your economic prospects a great deal of good, potentially.
No one person should have that level of power.
No, they shouldn't.
Well, in fact, he shouldn't. There should be Congress is supposed to be involved in that. Let's have a look at the Daily Mail. Trump-Iran war is pretty much over. I just want to know, when he goes to bed at night, what he thinks that means.
I think it's one of the strongest lines out of the comments he made, that and being very complete, because he's seen he's seen the stock market, which he pays close attention to. He likes to trumpet how it's reached record levels over recent months, and it has in the States, certainly, and done very well in the UK as well, for that matter. But he has to say that because he can see the economic harm that he's doing. So
he's also got the midterms coming up, hasn't he?
They're not far around the corner, and he's got to... prices and price sensitivity and inflation in America hitting people's pocketbooks, as they call them, is a massive thing. So he has to signal that this is very much heading towards an end. I don't think it's over yet. There's still a few targets he wants to hit, particularly with those big B-52 bombers that are parked here, ready to go in the UK, parked in Fairford in Gloucestershire. And he says, he talks about the Ukrainians. Trump says their missiles are down to a scatter. Their drones are being blown up all over the place, including the manufacturing of drones. If you look, they have nothing left. There's nothing left in a military sense. Now, that's not, of course, quite right, but the damage is big, but there are still...
I mean, they may have hit a good number of missile silos, which is fair enough, but these drones, of which there are rumours that Iran has got a stockpile of tens of thousands of these things buried in bunkers, which will not be found unless there's boots on the ground, and that they could keep going because they're so cheap, and they're making 50 a day or 500 a day
Exactly.
in Iran. So they're replenishing those very cheap, you know, 20 to, I mean, I think it's quite, I couldn't afford one, but a $20,000 to $50,000 drones, and they're spending $3 to $5 million trying to knock one out of the sky.
That's right, and that's again is why the UK and US were going to have to rethink their whole military strategies, because the missiles that we use, you rightly say, to knock these drones out, the multiple of what they cost compared to the drones is just unsustainable, because even if it's, I think it is 3 million, isn't it, or 300,000, 3 million for a missile, and these drones are, I think, about £40,000.
Yeah,
so.
and they're having to, even the cheapest of the missiles would be $1 million, but they would have to fire 2 or 3 at them in order to hit one of these very cheap drones. And the one that landed in, that crashed into Akrotiri, believed to have come from Lebanon, is my understanding, had Russian components in it.
Yes,
so you know, was that who fired that, right? And where did it come from? Was it Hezbollah? Which it probably was. But that means that the proxies have also got these drones, which they would have. So we haven't seen them bring those into action.
No, so it's still clearly got a few days to run and hopefully be over soon. But I think Trump's language has markedly shifted, hasn't it, from where it was in the beginning to making it clear. And the other thing he's not made any suggestion towards is, as we all know, to change regime and to get rid of the Republican Guard is boots on the ground, and there's no suggestion that he's going to do that.
There's no other way of doing that, although he hasn't denied it.
No.
But there's no other way for them to achieve that at all. I mean, even if they send the Kurds in, the Kurds are a blunt instrument. They would be a blunt instrument for him. Trump war is near its end, like you said. Last night he declared his war with Iran is very complete, pretty much. But Israel are not saying that.
No, and they're still very worried. I mean, they remain in the firing line. But I think the next 2 or 3 days, you'd expect to see more Israeli strikes and certainly more American strikes. And we'll just see what happens. But the Sun is a slightly different line because, as thinking about their readers, focusing very much on the impact of the oil crisis as well, and saying that, but it does make the point that oil prices soared and then did slump back. I mean, but they're obviously going to remain volatile.
Well, that was because the G7 said they weren't going to raid the stockpiles.
Yes.
That's why the prices sort of went down and stabilised a bit. But that'll only last for as long as it lasts. I mean, we could see tomorrow those prices that go, you know, I mean, the guy I was talking to earlier, Michelle, said he's never seen anything like the volatility in the market. It was a $40 range.
Exactly.
I mean, extraordinary to see oil do that, because normally if there's a crisis in oil, then somebody like Saudi Arabia said, well, we'll increase output, so that stabilises the price back down again. But in this case, they're not able to offer to fill the coffers because they're right bang smack in the middle of it.
They're caught in the middle of it. And even if it does, the conflict ends, you've still got a time lag, because you've got all these tankers that have got to sort of make their way to where they're going, and stuck in the Straits of Hormuz, just outside of it.
And not only that, but also you've got a problem with production in some of those places that have been struck.
Yes.
And China's certainly got a problem with the oil produced in Iran because they've been struck.
Yes, because they rely on it.
They're all on fire, so they rely on that. And China at the moment has probably only got two months stockpiled itself, so it can ride out this initial moment of panic, but eventually they're going to need to do something or say something or support who. Don't know.
Yeah, and that means there's pressure on Trump from not just domestically and from the UK, but pretty much from global markets everywhere, because the Middle East needs to restart, China needs it to restart. So the one thing everybody's agreed on is you've got to get the world economies going again, and they're all in very precarious position at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely they are. The FT, G7 stands ready to tap the oil reserves. They stopped short of that. But crude surged past $100 a barrel before falling back. I think it was up at nearly 120 actually at one point. Leaders rushed to rein in damage to the world economy, and it is that serious. bonds and stocks suffer as traders bet on high inflation and Trump under pressure on petrol price before elections. And that is the thing, that the lag on this as well, it will impact him on for his midterms.
Yeah, at a critical time, because as prices start to rise, people are starting to think about the midterms, making their mind up. And rising prices couldn't come at a worse time for him. So he does need to get them under control. Even if they're not under control, he tends to talk about how he's cut the price of eggs and things like that. But Americans aren't easily fooled, and if they see the prices going up, they'll know the prices are up.
Especially at the pumps.
Yes.
Yeah, especially at the pumps. So that's the FT. Unsurprising that it's gone with the new Ayatollah. Iran gathers in Tehran to show support for the newly appointed supreme leader, who is also the son of the former Ayatollah, only the third in the history of Iran.
Yes.
So I mean, it's a fairly new thing. The Guardian: Reeves warns of cost of living rise as war in Iran hikes energy prices. And can you believe that Apple is 50 years old?
Makes me feel very old, yes.
50 years old. I can't believe that. How is that possible? Apple at 50, the greatest hits and misses. That'll be worth a look, actually. And UK's AI claims built on phantom investments. This is interesting because the whole of the American stock market at the moment is really propped up on AI, and all it takes is one of them to fail to achieve what they want to do, and that bubble's gone, and that will see a major economic downturn for the US. But it's interesting here, the multi-billion-pound drive to mainline AI into the veins of the British economy is riddled with phantom investments and shaky accounting. And like I was saying, all it takes is for it to be revealed that somebody's been over-egging the pudding. And certainly they're saying in the US, so a lot of these AI companies are really over-promising and not really quite delivering on it yet. We're not there yet. So it's all a bit smoke and mirrors.
Yes, and that's what The Guardian seems to be saying about the UK. I mean, I think it was last year Keir Starmer said that if we fully embraced AI, that it would generate £47 billion to the economy, and that's very much been a key pillar of the government's growth strategy. But the Guardian's alleging that some of the things that were talked about some of these huge new data centres and massive investment from firms like the chip maker NVIDIA, well, it refers to one and says that a supercomputer centre 12 miles north of London is still a scaffolding yard.
Exactly.
Well, if that doesn't come off, then where's your sort of 47 billion of growth going to come from?
There's a lot. This reminds me of the early days of the tech bubble, that everyone was sort of investing and getting involved and everything, and it all just went and it just burst, and it really did cause economic chaos.
And there's got to be a risk of that.
Yeah, and there's got to be a risk of that when so much of the American stock is levelled at this sort of stock, and also here, and maybe it's just not ready for that yet. Right, Vince and I are going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Vincent Moss, former political editor. Some fine advice here on the front page of the Metro. Drive less to save on fuel as oil price soars. Well, the only reason you have fuel is to use it, presumably. So drive less to preserve it doesn't really add up.
It doesn't really. I mean, if it's a discretionary journey to visit a friend, fine. But if you're somebody who needs to drive to work every day,
or to get the kids to school,
exactly,
or to get to a hospital appointment, and people in the countryside, of course, are more disadvantaged than we are in the city.
Well, those things aren't going to change. But it seems as though one of the bits of advice, in addition to that, Edmund King from the AA is saying things like to cut fuel consumption, stick to the speed limits, accelerate and brake gently, avoid using the aircon and the heaters. Well, it might be all right not putting the aircon at the moment, but you probably need the heaters on. So that might save you a bit, but I can't see it making a huge amount of difference.
And you know what? It's a stupid. I don't know whether this is good advice or not, because, you know, if you don't have the heat, it's just going to be miserable, isn't it? And the heater stops the windscreen from fogging up or whatever, you know, all of that.
And most people who are driving because they have to. I mean, I don't think people are getting in a car because they fancy
Sunday drive.
They used to happen, didn't it? But I think those days are gone, aren't they?
We'll just go out for a Sunday drive. Yeah. No, that doesn't happen anymore. Most people use their cars because they need to use them. You know, they're saying that queues are forming around forecourts in the UK, and stations in Manchester ran out of fuel as people began to panic buy.
That always tends to happen, doesn't it? It does say, when it says, I always think people should always express these in prices in gallons, not litres, because when you say prices have jumped 5p a litre, it doesn't sound much. But when you say it's a 20p a gallon or 25p a gallon, it sounds a lot more, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It is a lot. But there you go. So don't put your heater on, don't put aircon on in the summer, and drive less. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What great advice. I always used to think, if I was running out of fuel, is it better to drive quickly and try to get there, or drive slowly? Of course, it's driving slowly burns far less fuel. So go everywhere at 20 miles. Oh, you do already.
Yeah.
Go everywhere at 20 miles an hour, like you do in London and parts of Wales. And the Daily Express, Reeves urged to act as soaring petrol prices are predicted in Middle East crises. Freeze duty call as fuel to hit £2 a litre. That would be catastrophic, wouldn't it?
It would, but I'm pretty sure
nearly
that
10 quid a gallon, isn't it?
That's the sort of fuel duty escalator which has been frozen at various budgets for a long time, but Labour, the new government, have said that they'll start rising it again. But I think the first rise isn't due to kick in until September, so one way or another, there's plenty of time to cancel that rise if the Chancellor wants to. Isn't
the 5p coming back as well? That they took 5p off the price of duty.
Yes.
During COVID, and that's been frozen, but that's also coming off. It is. So that it'll at least go up 5p.
Yeah, and I think even if the pressure eases on the situation in the Middle East, there'll probably still be demands to not increase that. But as ever, the government will need tax revenues, and this is a tax that the Chancellor didn't raise and had the opportunity to in the first couple of budgets, but will be under pressure because it'll be the old thing. If that tax doesn't go up, the money will need to be found for somewhere else. It's almost certainly been earmarked for spending somewhere, perhaps on defence, who knows?
Who knows?
So the money will have to be found if it doesn't go on fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the front pages. What did you find on the inner pages?
Well, I thought it was quite an interesting story in the Mail about, given all the talk there is at the moment about should we be banning, which looks likely, social media for under 16s, there's a poll in the Mail saying it's not just children addicted to social media, 1 in 5 parents are hooked on it too, and they're saying that 21% of those polled had admitted to parents, they were hooked on Facebook, Instagram, X and LinkedIn, with 23% of them suffering from anxiety as a result.
On LinkedIn?
Well, if you're looking for a job, I suppose. Now, that's a strange one, isn't it?
It's a very strange
one.
But
seeing how your schoolmates are doing, getting that envy on LinkedIn because they're doing better than you. So it just does seem, and it is a serious point, if you're going to expect your children to give up social media and not scroll through their phones, then there's a responsibility on parents to not be doing it either.
Well, of course, as I came on air at 10 o'clock, there'd been a vote, hadn't there, suggesting that they're not going to back it. They're not going to back a ban on under 16s.
Not at the moment, but I think that pressure will continue.
I think it has to.
I think you've seen what's happening in Australia where they're banning it, and I think a lot of other countries are looking at taking some action on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, it is true. I mean, this social media is a toxin, isn't it? You do get hooked on it.
Yeah, and I think in a perfect world, it's a bit like a lot of things that if you looked at where you would end up, then people wouldn't have allowed kids to have that sort of stuff on their phones to start with.
Like alcohol would never have been cleared.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Right, what else have you found?
Daily Telegraph's got an interesting story. Body cams for lollipop ladies after horrific road rage, and saying that Suffolk County Council are now saying that they're forced into action after staff helping children crossing roads are screamed at, spat at and left terrified. This is not by the children, but by by motorists, and that the behaviour has been so bad in places like Ipswich. One officer was abused by a cyclist after being asked to dismount, and another lollipop lady in Lowestoft was shaken after a confrontation with a man who spat on the floor towards her. So they're now going to give them all body cams, which is increasingly a thing with public servants. I think in some hospitals in London, some of the nurses have now been given body cams in A&E because
shocking,
the violence that they get towards them. And I think we're seeing this in quite a lot of places now, where public service workers, whether you're a bus driver or even now apparently a lollipop lady, who you would have thought would be the last people anybody would want to be mean to, are facing such sort of outrageous behaviour that there's going to be a 6-week awareness campaign, and they're going to trial out these body cams on lollipop ladies.
I mean, what is the world coming to when you're attacking a lollipop lady or gentleman? I've seen both.
And the other thing I think I've seen occasionally on videos, when we talk about doom scrolling through those videos, is you see drivers, when the lollipop lady or man steps out into the road, the drivers don't stop and they just try and whiz through just before the crocodile.
I mean, honestly, what, are they carrying the nuclear codes? What is wrong with these people? It's a 2-second stop to let kids cross the street. I mean, nobody's that important, right?
They're not, but people are just entitled, aren't they? And some motorists don't like stopping. So it's a curious story, but I guess if it works, you might see it happening in other places. I mean, apparently they were given to...
We'll all be wearing them soon, won't we?
Well, I think you're going to need it as evidence to show you didn't... that could be... It ends up the whole world has a body cam of some sort or another to prove or disprove something.
Well, it's already happening in cars, isn't it? A lot of private cars have got cameras front and back.
Yes.
Now, just in case they get bumped into or there's an accident.
Or to prove some of those scams, I think, where people are trying this insurance scam, they will reverse into drivers, and I think people have used their own dash cams to prove that they're innocent. So yeah, it's an increasingly common thing.
Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, you should get a dash cam. You should definitely have a dash cam."
I can't be bothered, but if it lowers your insurance, which it seems to suggest it might do.
Maybe.
But then what if you have the prang? You have to get rid of the dash cam.
You have to get rid of the evidence, Governor. Straight to the Thames.
Yeah.
Diving in with your car, just to get rid of the evidence. No, I just think it's such a sad indictment on the world now that we have to be watched doing everything.
Yes.
And it's the same with the doorbell cameras, isn't it, now?
It is. I quite like the doorbell cameras, though, because you know when the guy says he's delivered your parcel. But you know that
companies like Palantir are using the footage.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're collecting all of the footage. It's just observation. It's just complete countrywide observation on people.
I mean, the upside is you know certain things are happening, like you do know whether the parcel's been delivered properly or not.
I know that because I've got 2 dogs that bark.
That's true, but if you're out, but then they still bark, but you don't know that. Yes, exactly.
And I still go there and find it.
Yeah.
I know before, I think the delivery driver knows that they're coming to my house, because certainly little Humphrey is a splendid, absolutely splendid.
Excellent hearing.
Yeah, he's an incredible guard dog, and he's the size of a cat, but he's an incredible guard dog, better than the other one, better than Bailey. What else have you got?
There's a story in the iPaper about stormy weather may be garbling messages from aliens, according to experts. A true story. Apparently, the Earth's leading alien hunters believe that extraterrestrials could be out there, but they're struggling to get through because the weather conditions are so bad at the moment that the messages that could be out there can't get through because of the weather we're having. And this is from the Silicon Valley-based SETI Institute, which stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and they say tempestuous space weather is making it harder for radio signals from the distant cosmos to detect, which means that if the aliens are trying to talk to us, the weather might be stopping them.
What a load of rubbish.
Quite
I
fun.
mean, is it a radio wave? Are they using radio waves?
Well, who knows?
Who knows? But also, if a little bit of weather's going to stop them, how have they managed to get the signal close enough anyway?
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, but this alien stuff is starting to get traction
There's a
against it
lot,
after
yeah.
Obama sort of reignited the debate, didn't he, last month
Yeah.
when he said that on a podcast that aliens were real, and then you had Trump saying he'd release the files, so all that.
Well, we've heard him talk about releasing files before, and that
We
hasn't
have,
quite
haven't we? And that
happened.
didn't go so
No,
well,
that
did
didn't
it?
go quite so
No.
well. But he may well release something to stop us looking at the other files.
Exactly. He could release the alien files to stop us looking at the Epstein,
files. I don't think anyone's going to stop looking at the Epstein
this is
files.
true.
Do you think?
No.
And what could be in the alien files?
Epstein stories. Possibly.
Epstein was an alien.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be it. That'll be that Epstein was an alien. Goodness me, what a story. And you're right, there's a lot of alien stuff that seems to be around at the moment. In fact, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago on this programme. I don't normally do phone-ins like that, but it was quite interesting talking to people who reckon they'd seen stuff and disappeared. They couldn't understand where they'd been for a day or something. Very interesting. No alien has ever tried to abduct me.
No, nor me.
Yeah.
Could happen.
It could happen, Vincent. Make sure you give us a call when you get home tonight.
Will do.
Vincent Moss, thank you very much indeed. Former political editor there. That is your papers for tomorrow. Now, I want you to stay where you are. In fact, I want you to pick up the phone because it's Talkback, and I want you to tell me, should the King go to America or not?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. This is Talkback, and this is Petrie, and I want you to talk to me this morning about the royal visit to the US. So it is planned, apparently. Plans are in the early stage, it may not be already I don't know. I mean, we're hearing that there are plans. We've been hearing about this for quite some time now. The King and the Queen are due to go over to the United States, to go over to Washington, and visit with Donald Trump. And I'm wondering whether you think he should still go or not. There are calls now. It started with Ed Davey, Sir Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats, saying, look, you should instruct the king not to go and to prevent the king from visiting the United States. And he said the visit should not go ahead as it would hand a huge diplomatic coup to Trump during the US-Israeli strikes on Iran. Downing Street has declined to comment, telling reporters on Monday that the visit is yet to be confirmed. The conflict has strained transatlantic ties after Sakir initially refused to allow American planes to use British bases to launch bombing raids on the country. The UK has since authorised the US to use its bases to launch defensive strikes on missile sites in Iran, used to launch retaliatory strikes, while the RAF planes have also been sent to intercept Iranian drones and missiles, which they have actually done to great effect. It was a typhoon, in fact, that did it. But it has prompted criticism from the US president, who branded Sakir no Winston Churchill, we talked about that last week, and accused him on Saturday of wanting to join wars after we've already won. Well, that certainly isn't true of Iraq, is it? It certainly isn't true of the Gulf Wars. They hadn't been won. In fact, they weren't won by any reasonable sort of judgment at all. The two leaders spoke on Sunday for the first time since the row escalated, although Downing Street has released only limited details of the call. Apparently it wasn't a very comfortable call. It is interesting, though, that the King and Queen often have to go and talk to people we don't like very much. And it's called their soft power. It is their diplomatic power. They're not part of government. They are separate from government. And so they can talk to these world leaders on a completely different level and not even mention government if they wanted to. I can't think that the King would be very happy about it, not because of what's happened over Iran so much, but as to what happened when Donald Trump decried the British forces, who were Her Majesty's forces at the time, he said that they were cowards, that none of them were on the front line. Well, what's the point of NATO? You know, they joined us, but they weren't even on the front line. We were on the front line. And although he was, Keir Starmer went back and said, well, that's objectively not true and we lost a lot of people, Trump didn't apologise for that. He simply went, oh, yeah, great, thanks for the British troops. They did a great job. But he didn't say, look, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said that of the men and women that we lost in that conflict, and other NATO allies, of course, as well. So that would hack me off. That would be the thing as the King, that I would be really disgusted with Trump about. So the King is going to have to sort of, I don't know, swallow his pride, swallow his dignity, whatever else he might have to swallow to go and talk to Donald Trump. So do you think he should go? Do you think that actually, look, he can smooth things over for at least a day or two, who knows, with Trump, that he might forgive Keir Starmer for doing what Keir Starmer felt was the right thing to do for this country, whether you agree with him or not? I think it was a principled decision, and I don't have any great stock with Keir Starmer, but whoever the politician is, I'll give credit where it's due. And I think it is due on this occasion that he stood by his principles and said, look, we learnt from the Iraq War. But it's definitely put him in a hole. It appears by polling that most of the British public also agree with what Keir Starmer allowed or didn't allow. But look, there's no doubt that we're in the bad books. We're on the naughty step, and what that could mean for us in the future could be absolutely disastrous. We know with tariffs and all sorts of things that Donald Trump could punish us with. So does the King need to kind of suck it up and go there anyway and do his magic, his magic touch with Donald Trump? Or does the King say, no, now is not the time? I don't know. I suspect it'll go ahead, but I'm just interested as to where you think the King should place himself at this point. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can also text, please do, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. Do we need to go ahead and suck up to Trump some more in order to protect us in the future, or do we need to deny him what he most wants, and that is to be seen with the king and to have his moment of glory, pressing flesh with a royal, just to appease him, really. That's all this is about. It's about appeasing Donald Trump. So give me a call. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I don't mind which one it is. We'll talk about it anyway. So let's go to your calls. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a funny party for him to go to, really, isn't it? It's a bit like your ex-partner cheating on you, and then you go into the wedding.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, it's definitely be awkward, but I think that the royals are used to awkward, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think he should go because, I mean, if he doesn't go, who gets punished? Because Donald Trump's not like a normal president, is he? I mean, he punishes people if they upset him in any way. I mean, he punishes people even if he hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, he's tariffed all of his trading partners and sort of ruined their economy. So is it if the king doesn't go? I mean, who will suffer? Ukraine? I mean, people in Ukraine might pay with their lives. You just don't know with him, do you?
Well, that is a real point, and I think that we'll start to see support for Ukraine waning a bit. Not because it's still not a worthy war to be won, but there will be a lot of countries now who are concerned about their stockpile of weapons, and America is certainly going to be one. Now, he's going to say that the reason that they've run out is because they gave Ukraine so many weapons. That is absolutely, they gave away some of their old stock. In fact, they didn't give it, it still boosted the defence industry in the United States of America because those had to be replaced. So. And there wouldn't have been that boost to the defence industry in the US without that older stock being given to or being sold to or whatever, in whichever way you look at it, to Ukraine. So I think Ukraine is going to suffer a lot anyway after this.
Because a lot of, like you say, a lot of that stock was out of date, and if they didn't give it to Ukraine, they would have to have paid
to have it destroyed.
To I don't know, recycle it or take it to bits or whatever.
Yeah, they were at the point where they were going to have to spend billions on having those decommissioned, having those weapons decommissioned.
That's it. And Biden, he's the one that he agreed to give them, so much aid. But Trump, he's not given them anything. The only thing that he's given them now is what other NATO countries are buying off of him.
Yes.
He's still supplying that.
Yes, I mean, he is giving intelligence information, which is vital. And we know that how quickly he switches that off when he thinks he's been wronged. People did pay with their lives with that. I mean, I'm just so fed up with this that Trump seems to take everything personally, and then, as you said, punishes people for it.
Well, that's it. I mean, look what you said to Canada. I mean, we think we're America's closest ally, but we're not really.
No, Canada has been, yeah.
Canada's their closest ally. They're biggest trading partner. When there's things go wrong, when 9/11 happens, all the planes, a lot of planes in America, they landed in Canada. When there's disasters in America, Canada goes to their aid.
Yeah, straight away. And even with those illegal wars in the Middle East in the past, the whole of NATO jumped and went to his aid, and he expects us not to have learned any lessons from that. I find that incredible.
Yeah, well, the thing is with America, Trump is. I mean, people aren't going to trust America even when he's gone. Because of their legal system, because he can actually go to war with whoever he wants.
With no congressional input at all. Yeah.
No, that's it. I mean, he's made a law, hasn't he, that whatever he does when he's president, there's no consequences. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and no man was ever designed no presidency was ever designed to hold this much power. And you're right, it has shone an enormous light on the Constitution, and the fact that the whole of the Constitution seems to have been based on having somebody with honour. There's no guardrails, there's no laws around these things that protect against one man saying, nah, not doing it.
Well, he changed the law, didn't he? He changed the law because before there was consequences, but he changed the law to say whatever he does, doesn't matter if it's illegal.
Presidential immunity. Presidential immunity only goes so far. He can't be prosecuted for things he does within the realms of his job as president. But all of the other stuff, all of the fraud and the money that he's making, none of that is immune.
No, that's it.
None of that is immune.
Crypto he's making, where you don't know where that money's coming from.
Absolutely, and we know, we can see that these huge deposits of coin from countries that want a favour, and that's not what it was designed. That's the whole point of the guardrails that are supposed to be around a president, but he's found a way around them. That could well be his undoing, because that's not presidential. That's not part of his presidential duties. It's only stuff that is within the law and within presidential duties that he has immunity from. But there's a lot of stuff that, they're already saying to Kristi Noem, who was sacked, the Department for Homeland Security, she was sacked last week, and they're already saying to her, we're coming after you. You don't have Donald Trump told you had immunity. You don't.
Yeah, but the thing
not from
is,
state laws anyway.
We're in a weaker position now because we haven't got the strength of the EU, and Trump knows we haven't.
Yeah,
he knows that we've lost a bit of our power because the EU can act
collectively
as one. Because there is three superpowers in this world, really. There's America, China, and the EU. But we're not a part of that anymore. And the thing is that we shouldn't rely on American military hardware either, because it needs updating through America every day. I don't know.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I've been saying this for decades, that when we're talking about building up our weapons systems, it should be British manufacturers for security reasons. You buy from any other country, you've got to, first of all, you can't update. Even if an aircraft needs to be updated, it's all computer. We know how often your phone needs updating, right? That's how often these, and they could build a bug into it, they could shut them down. Missiles that are made in a foreign country, they can be disarmed by the press of a button. Why have we...
Same as our nuclear deterrent. That has to be maintained by America.
Exactly. And it's so depressing that people have been so short-sighted and thought, we'll all be friends forever. Therefore, and people think that when they get married, right? They don't have a prenup. So they think, no, because we love each other and we're together forever. And then suddenly you're in a divorce and it starts to get nasty. And that I can see happening with us in America. We should always have had a prenup. We should always have bought weapons from, built weapons in our own country, even if it was more expensive.
I think there should be a European army, because Europe's on our doorsteps. And I think we could rely on Europe more than America, because Europe doesn't just go to war with a different country like America. There's checks and balances. But
it's interesting because they've been talking about a European army for at least 30 years. There's been a discussion around having a European army, a European military. And we do have pockets of soldiers that work together with European soldiers, and they go out on special ops and special things. But the idea of a European-wide military has always hit roadblocks. I wonder if it will this time.
Well, this has pushed it further a bit closer together. I think we need to get closer to Canada as well, because
definitely.
Canada can't rely on America.
No.
And I think the Commonwealth, Canada, UK, Australia, there should be some sort of link with the Commonwealth countries too, because there's a lot of people in the Commonwealth.
I think we'll see a closer uniting with Commonwealth countries. And it's interesting because up until now I would have thought that we will see a breakup of the Commonwealth, but I think that this somehow your enemy's enemy is my friend, or we look at suddenly we've got an enemy in America, if you like, or a disabling figure in America, and that will pull other people together, maybe.
Yeah. Do you remember not so long ago they was asking us the question, do you think we need to ditch the EU and go in more with America? And people were thinking, oh, I don't know, which way should we go? But I think this has just made it more clear that we shouldn't go in with them, because because you're weaker, they take advantage of you.
Yeah. And I think that Trump is such a destabilising figure, even economically, and now we've seen with the Middle East that we all need to readjust our opinions, and we need to readjust our protections, if you like.
Well, yeah. I mean, what about fuel prices? I mean, how's that going to affect the world economy?
It's going to be a disaster.
We're just starting to have some good news. Maybe I did hear that they thought that the interest rates were going to go down possibly this year, but that doesn't look like.
Well, they were due to go down at the end of the month, and now the Bank of England has said no. In fact, they're not going to go down this year, and they may well go up next year. So yeah, the impact of this is going to be, the ripple effect of this is going to hit us all. And for Donald Trump to say, yeah, the war's nearly over, it's like...
One minute he's saying that the war's nearly over.
Then he's saying it's not a war.
He said we've won, and then he turns around and says, oh, but we'll get, if it can go on forever, or not forever, but until there's no one left, he said.
Yeah.
I think 1 minute he says it's over, and then he says that they're going to continue until there's no one left.
Yeah, well, this is the uncertainty, isn't it, of Donald Trump? This is what the world doesn't like, and the markets don't like. It's just this uncertainty, and that's all he seems to breed.
What about those girls? They haven't got a life anymore. 160 girls, their life's just ended.
Yeah.
He said, oh, it wasn't us, it was the Iranians.
Well, there's evidence coming through from that. I'm going to hold fire on that until I cast blame. But it seems like it wasn't. There's an image of an American drone hitting close by the school, but whether they've given the right information out, I don't know. But if it was the Americans, then there's going to be hell to pay for that. But the evidence is still being collected on that, so I'm going to hold off on judgment on that just for now.
Well, I mean, can you trust what
No.
tells you anyway?
That's the truth of it. No, and I wouldn't trust Pete Hegseth either. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't trust it. And look, in the fog of war, it was either one or the other. It was Israel or America, right?
Why did he even start it? Did he just start the war?
Well, no. I mean, he's saying because we've seen now they've got all these drones and they were going to attack us. Well, that doesn't mean anything. They've had all these drones for a long time and they've been stockpiling them in case they were attacked.
Yeah, but you can't just attack a country because they've got loads of drones.
You can't just attack a country because you think they're going to attack you. Yeah, there has to be some intelligence.
I mean, why doesn't he attack Russia then? They've got nuclear weapons aimed at him for years.
Yeah, well, and Russia's been giving intelligence to the Iranians, apparently.
I know.
And he's still on the phone to Putin for an hour. What compromat has Putin got on him?
I don't know.
I mean, he's even directing missiles, Putin is, towards American things, like bases and ships and people, and Donald Trump's going, oh, hi, Poots. Hi, Rooty Poots, let's have a little chat. Well, there's something so sinisterly wrong about that.
Yeah, I've heard that he's got some sort of agreement where Russia gets Europe, he gets...
this is according to the 1984 novel. And China gets Asia. Yeah, and it's entirely possible. I wouldn't put anything past these people. I really wouldn't. Great to talk to you, Kevin. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be straight back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie. This is Talk Back, actually, and this is your opportunity to do exactly that. It has a full hour of no guests, just you and me, and we're talking about the Liberal Democrats under Sir Ed Davies saying that Sir Keir Starmer should prevent the King visiting the United States next month over Donald Trump's criticism of the British response to Iran. He also mentioned that this bombing, this war that Donald Trump started is going to cost us a lot of money economically in terms of individual people in this country. And we've already seen prices skyrocket. In terms of fuel, and everything else will follow. In fact, there's a huge inflationary pressure now on us. So I'm asking whether you think that actually King Charles should go. I mean, this is their superpower, right? This is, you know, whenever I talk about the royal family, I always say, look, they have this incredible soft power. And that can't be underestimated. It has been important to this country for decades and decades and decades. The Queen and other people, they've all met with these revolting despots around the world and tried to smooth things over. Even people you wouldn't want to be anywhere near. The Queen has had to shake hands and have dinner with. And they do that at the behest of the government. So that you know, look, we're falling out with so-and-so, so we get, you know, even Ceausescu, I mean, awful, horrible people have been made guests of the British royals, probably against their will, but they've done it because that is their superpower. And the King seems to be a bit of a Donald whisperer. I mean, you know, it seems like Trump is impressed by the King and certainly likes being seen with the King. I think it's safe to say, isn't it? He likes the rub-off effect. I'm with the royalty, you know. And Mark has said, do you really think Trump gives a damn about King Charles? He already knows Charles is an eco-zealot. Burn, baby, burn. I think he is impressed by the King. He's a royalist, a monarchist. He likes the idea of being important enough to be hanging out with the King. It appeals to his sense of narcissism and ego. But you know, I don't know. I think he would be impressed by that. Snakebite, good morning. I'm not crazy about the royals, but I don't think any of them need to be over here in the US. It's like rewarding Trump's bad behaviour. As for Trump and how he's handled this war, he's pretty much the guy who would use somebody's toilet and make a horrific, splattery, stinky mess to confirm so horrific that he doesn't have the courtesy to flush, and it would be plugged up anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's what he's leaving behind in Iran, a nasty, stinky mess. That's pretty much the way I see it. Anyway, he'll say, right, I'm done here. We've done our bit now. It's over to you. You do the rest of it. You do the regime change and all of that. So yeah, I don't think that that is going to work very well for anybody, least of all the incredible Iranian people. Richard said the King should go 100%. The royals are not supposed to be political, and thus they should not be used as such. We are not an empire. We're a tiny island which takes over a week to get a warship ready. We need America, whether you like it or not, and it would be very petulant not to go. That's my opinion. And it's a really strong opinion. And I completely agree with it. But I also hate the idea of sucking up to that man all the time. It really annoys me. I love this one from Andy. Just got to read this. He says, the King should go. He could give his brother Andrew a lift. I hear Congress wants a word. Can you imagine if the King delivered Andy? That would be amazing. Right, let's go back to your calls now. And Carol is in Manchester. Morning, Carol.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. Lovely show as usual.
Thank you.
Absolutely love her. Right, here we go. There's two roads. There's the royals and then there's the government.
Yeah.
Completely completely different. I totally agree with you, with majority that you've spoken about, you know, like, and I think a lot of us get confused that the royals are with the government and the government are with the royals. Thank God the government are not the royals, and thank God the royals are not the government. And at a time like this, yeah, definitely. I've seen because I love Queen Elizabeth. I absolutely adored her. Brought up on her. Literally, my nana, we had to be up there, you know, like on the television, you know, like, and when we were kids, you know, like saluting, you know, like, or whatever. Anyway, I'm going off what I'm saying, it's completely different. Every leader, other than some of the dictators, there's lots of them in different countries. The majority are up for 5 years. Trump's up for 5 years. It doesn't matter if you like him, hate him, dislike him, want to kill him, love him, whatever. It doesn't make any difference, right? It's 5 years and 5 years.
I think it's 4 in the US.
Is it 4?
I think it's 4.
Right,
yeah.
four with it, you know, like, and that, and exactly with the leader that we've got, our prime minister, love him, hate him, or whatever. But unfortunate, you know, like, if you don't like him, the people of that country voted for him, and we are a democracy country, just like any other country that we align with. We all what you call it, and we have to think about that. And I totally agree with the King going over there, right? It doesn't matter what our politics are or what you call it with it. It doesn't matter what. We all know how Trump behaves, right? You can see that. You can see that in loads. I bet you've got somebody like that in your family that behaves like that. That behaves. You know it. I've got quite a few from that behave like that. You know, like, and we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it, and that's what I love about the royalty. I love about that is that. It's and you're right about the Commonwealth. I mean, it's Commonwealth today. I watched it today. It was lovely and everything, and I think it'll make it even better. You know, like for us all to get together. We're all trying to get together, and we're all, you know, like, and you've got the wrong people, the right people, or whatever. I'm not going to go into the war. I'm not going to go into that politics because it's too big. But what I am going to say is at the end of the day, right, the King should go there. And who's to think that the King and the Queen go to America? How do you think that will look upon Trump? Because of what he's spoken about. How, you know, like, we're talking about, oh, well, he said this or said that. Me, if I was the King, I would go, because people that know that then people have said that, or that person said something about me, I would definitely go there, because at the end of the day, who looks the dafter one? You know, like, so...
So we just rise above?
Definitely rise above. And unfortunate, sometimes in that high area we do have to. And the Queen did it. The Queen...
Yeah, I seem to have a memory of Mugabe visiting the Queen.
Yeah.
And that can't have been a very comfortable moment for her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there were a lot of people who went to visit the Queen that she would have had to have risen above.
Oh, she did have that. And I think it would have been harder for our Queen now to try and do what she did over the last decades ago, you know, like, because of the way that we all behave, the way that we deal with things, move on for the good, move on for the bad. But I definitely do think, I mean, some of the things, I can't remember what the Queen, you know, did or whatever, but I know my family said, oh, God, you know, like, she shouldn't go there, it's dangerous, or it shouldn't be, or I don't like them, just like we're doing with Trump, you know, like, with it.
You're right. I mean, he was diplomatically elected by the American people.
Exactly.
You know, and whatever he's done since then, it is up to the American people whether they re-anoint him or not. Well, he can't. Well, he may well go for a third term.
And we might not even like it. We might not even. I mean, it's just like Liberal. You know, like with him. I'm just going to say this. Please don't fall out with me. But I'm just going to say he needs to get off his wooden play horse. You know, like with it. You know, get something more structurable. Get something more what you call it. Do it. Don't use the royals. You know, like get into your political road. That's what I would say, and work it on there. That's harder to do it than to use, you know, like, and put more pressure on. As we know, the royals are going through stuff anyway with Andrew anyway, who's an absolute disgrace. Absolutely. But again, we're talking about families. We've got somebody in the family that's a disgrace. Believe me, I've got loads of people in my family that are disgrace. And honestly, you know, like, they're trying their hardest. We don't need that. He will go over there. He will represent this country, right, as a decent country, you know, like, at the end of the day. And with his queen, he will do that. He will, what you call it, he will represent. And that's how that's how the royals have done it for centuries. You know, they've got better and better and better. So we don't need that ever, you know, like, pressure on our royals, you know, like, with it. We need more pressure on our governments. That's what we need. Not on our royals, because they do try to do it in a different way.
And like you say, you know, governments come and go, but the royalty has sustained up until now anyway, and have seen off loads of different political leaders. And that is, again, part of the power, isn't it? That the king will still be there.
Power. Sometimes it is nice to have that soft power. And I know I look at Liberal, and they've tried to do that soft power, and it's very, very hard to do that soft power. But, you know, like, it's honestly, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you're treading on something that is, we don't need to tread on the king going over there, really. We don't. What we need to do is make sure our government, at the end of the day, is doing what they need to do, is right. It's an horrendous thing. I don't even want to talk about how what they can do or what they can't. People, again, are being hit, not just us, all over the country, all over parts of the world now, are going to be affected by all this that's gone. You know, like, and at the end of the day, it's the people, the leaders of every individual country are responsible for that. Not the royals, not us, them. That's what I say anyway.
Yeah, it's a very good point. He made some excellent points. Thank you very much indeed, Carol. That's brilliant. Yes, I was right. I knew I'd remembered it. Robert Mugabe made a 4-day state visit to the UK in May 1994, meeting Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip at Buckingham Palace to improve diplomatic relations. During this visit, the Queen awarded him, believe it or not, an honorary knighthood, Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, which was later revoked in 2008 due to human rights abuses. So they don't always get it right, but there you go. I knew I'd remembered that Mugabe. I mean, that must have been so distasteful to the Queen. Anyway, I've got to take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good morning to you. This is Talk, and this is Talkback, and it's Petrie. Here with you until 1 o'clock, and we're talking this morning about whether the King and the Queen should go to America and visit with Donald Trump. It's been talked about for a while now, this state visit, and I believe it's at the end of April that there was a plan for them to go. The government is saying that it has not been confirmed, but other newspapers are saying, look, the planning of it is still going ahead. So I'm just wondering whether you think that it should go ahead, whether the King should go. I mean, look, as Carol was quite rightly saying, this soft power has been incredibly important to this country for a very, very, very long time. The fact that the King and the government are separate, and the King can go and do the nice stuff and try and smooth things over certainly with Donald Trump at the moment, who is jolly baity. He's very angry with Keir Starmer at the moment, and we know what that feels like, right? We've seen him get angry with other leaders around the world, and he's not very kind to them. Although Congress has removed his ability to use tariffs in that way, that punitive way, immediately. I mean, he's using a law at the moment that can only last 150 days, and then he's got to find another law where he can use another one. So basically, he can no longer go, right, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to put tariffs on you, because that power has been removed from him. But he may well find other things that he thinks he can do, like he said with Spain. We're not going to trade with you anymore. And yet Spain is part of the EU, and there are EU agreements, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him. But anyway, we've seen him do that. So do we need to send the royals over there as a sort of peacemakers in chief that can suck up to Trump and make everything okay again? That's the question that I'm asking this morning. And Ian has called in from here in London. Ian, you think he should go? Good morning.
Hi, Petrie. Sorry, darling. Can you just give me about 5 seconds?
Yeah, I can give you 5 seconds. What are you doing that you need to... Don't answer that.
No, it's not that bad.
I don't need to know what you're doing. I'll just give you 5 seconds. I tell you what I'll do is I'll read out a text message while you get ready, all right?
Yeah, sure, go on.
I think that President Trump, this is from Maxine, I think President Trump is even more dangerous for the UK than Keir Starmer is, and that is saying something. I think President Trump changes his mind more often than Starmer's U-turns, and everything he says is fake news, unreliable, unrealistic, or a downright lie. I was thinking that the King should go to the USA to try to repair this so-called special relationship, but now I actually think the relationship does not exist anyway. Even if the King can suck up to him, Trump will find something else to be annoyed about. And I just think that what does he want us to do, for goodness sake? It's all about the oil, stock markets, and nothing to do with changing the regime in Iran. Those in the know are going to make millions, even billions over this. This all just doesn't sit right with me at all. And that's from Maxine in Maidstone. I agree. And nothing sits right with me on this at all either. Are you ready now, Ian?
I'm done, Petrie. I'm all good.
Excellent.
Sorry about that.
Good. That's fine. That's fine. Right. What do you make of this? What do you think?
Well, I think that Charles should go. There's no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's just... everything seems to be going so the wrong way in this country, and all the hierarchies, blah, blah, seem to be bowing down so much as to what's going on from the, I say Muslim, but I say it's more the Islamic side of like believers. I say this bearing in mind that my father was a Muslim who fought in the Second World War. Basically, merchant navy, ended up here, met my mum, married her, did the last 2 years fighting in the British Navy, and lived here as a Muslim, but had nothing to do with it whatsoever, but he didn't eat pork. He'd be 105 this year. He would be turning in his grave. He lived his life as an Englishman. Never went to a mosque, never this, never that. I couldn't even say hardly a word in Urdu, and he died 14 years ago. It's just, I think it's just mad what's going on in the world at the moment. But the whole world seems to be bowing down to this Islamic.
Do you think so? I mean, the Muslim countries would say that, look, we're the most attacked. You know, certainly with Iran, with the Shia Muslim population, this is almost the centre of the Shia Muslim population, actually, Iran. That nobody's bowing down to them. In fact, they're bombing them. And we didn't leave Iraq alone or Afghanistan alone. I mean, we're hardly covering ourselves in glory, are we?
Well, unfortunately, these countries should grow up a bit. It's the year 2026, not pre-2026, below. Do you know what I mean? They still lived 500, 1,000 years ago, not in the modern world. Their way of thought of life doesn't change.
Well, I think that's true. That is true to be said of the more radical, like the Taliban, like you know, the Ayatollahs in Iran. I would agree with you on that.
There you go.
But that's not all of the Muslims, and you've got to remember as well that Iran is Shia Muslim and not Sunni Muslim, and Sunni Muslims make up about 80% of the Islamic faith, and the Shia are only about 20%.
Well,
and it's usually the Shia side of it that are a bit more sort of radical in that way.
Well, it's like I said, the Islamic side of it are the ones that are causing all this.
The radical.
Muslims. Yeah, it's the radical side. It's the ones that read the God knows how many 1,000-year-old book.
Well, there are a lot of Christians who read a 1,000-year-old book as well, and the Quran actually. I've not read it, but I've spoken to a lot of scholars, and you know, it's not the devil book that you think it is.
No, it's the Bible.
But it's the way that it's the interpretation that some people will use in a radical way. But people use the Bible in a radical way.
Yeah, I know, but. I mean, what percentage, how many? It just drives me mad. You know, why should you live your life by a book?
Well, listen, I agree. I don't hold any religion. I don't have any.
Same here.
Yeah, I don't hold with it. I don't understand it. But you know, some people have faith, and that's all they need is belief and faith. I need proof. That's just the way that my brain works, and obviously that's the way your brain works as well.
Of course, Petrie. I mean,
religion has caused more wars.
I'm meant to be a Muslim. By birth, I'm meant to be a Muslim.
Yeah.
But I look at it and I think, yeah, my dad was, but he never had anything to do with it because he lived his life as the same as you and I do.
It doesn't make you a bad person either, does it? You can still be a really good person and not have religion. Yeah, I mean, I listen. I agree with you. I make no bones of the fact that I don't have religion. I kind of, you know, I think it's admirable that some people do believe without proof. You know, that's fine. Course, but it's just not for me, and clearly not for you either. But you look at religious wars and religion and the damage that religion has caused throughout the history of mankind.
Yeah,
it's just constantly fighting about religion, which, you know, some people would say is made up and imaginary, and yet that's all we do is fight about it. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Ian, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for whatever you were doing and finishing whatever you were doing and not telling me what it was. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back, and I'm Petrie. I'm with you until the top of the hour, and we're talking about whether the King should go and visit the United States next month, because the Liberal Democrats, Fred Davey, has said that he shouldn't, that we shouldn't go over Trump's criticism of the British response in Iran. And also he said, look, it shouldn't go ahead because it would hand a huge diplomatic coup to Trump during the US-Israeli strikes on Iran. Downing Street has declined to comment, although they commented by saying that the visit is yet to be confirmed. So do you think he should go or not? And there's been some really good arguments actually saying that he really should go because he's not the government and he can go and smooth things over. Other people are saying, well, what's the point? Because they're just around the corner. There'll be another row that Trump wants to have with us about something, or something else that won't quite make him happy, and he'll just punish us for something, and perceived, if not actual. So it's interesting to me that from a man that is America first and America only, that he would be so judgmental about a leader who said it's Britain first on this occasion. But still, he's livid with Keir Starmer. In fact, apparently a call that was taking place on Sunday evening didn't really go that well, and that Trump didn't back down. But could King Charles smooth things over? Could the King and Queen do this soft power? This incredible soft power that we kind of take for granted a bit. But we saw it in action before, didn't we, when Trump got his second state visit, with that cringing moment where Keir Starmer handed him that letter. Do you remember that? Oh, it's so embarrassing. And that's what I can't bear to see. Because, you know, we were once a really important country, and we were once a really powerful country, and I know we're not there at the moment, but still, for goodness sake, you don't go cap in hand and start sort of sycophanting your way up to a leader like Donald Trump. It was disgusting, it was horrible, and it was embarrassing, and I thought it was belittling for this country. I really did. But on the other hand, do we need to suck up to him? Because without him, we're nothing. What a thought. Let's go to your calls now. And Tristan has called from Bedford. Hello, Tristan. How are you this morning?
Not too bad. I just want to quickly, just the call you had previously about religion. I mean, I believe there's something there. And, you know, when all else fails, like I've not been very well at all at the moment, so I have actually been praying, to be honest with you, because I've been that unwell. You know, but the thing is that, you know, the end of the day, when it comes to religion, you know, some people just put it before everything, and that's the wrong thing. And the way I look at it is, you know, someone makes choices, and they should have the consequences for the choices they make. But the problem is with religion is that sort of bypasses everything.
Yeah,
and that's the shocking indictment where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If people choose religion, that's lovely for them. It's just not for me. And that should be fine with everyone, right? It should be fine that those are
freedom of religion, freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice, exactly that. What I cannot tolerate is when religion becomes involved with politics. No. And you know, you saw in the White House them praying over Donald Trump, these sort of, and I just think, well, what's that doing in the White House? You know, it shouldn't be a part of a political discourse. It really shouldn't. And we've seen, and the thing is about religion, we see religion has caused more death and destruction and everything than anything else in the world. I mean, it's man-made. And it's caused death and destruction. And look, you know, if my dog was ill, I might pray just in case.
There you go.
Just in case. But I still don't believe it. But you know, it's just one of those. It's just one of those things. And if it brings you peace and it brings you comfort, great. I'm all for it. But keep it the hell away from politics.
From politics, exactly. And that's where we are. Where it looks like politics is invested into everything.
Yeah.
And the problem we have is regards to this situation with Prince Charles and appeasing Donald Trump. The problem is we look so weak on the world stage. We've hollowed out so much of our country. The only thing that we do have, and any sort of status that we do have, unfortunately, is the royal family. Yeah. Even though they're much as, you know, a lot of them are sort of a mess at the moment. You know, we can go on about Prince Harry and Prince Andrew and how much of what they've done to sully the name. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, in Donald Trump's eyes, it does still have some sort of status.
And I think that's what it is, isn't it? It's the status. It's his ego likes to be seen with the king. I think it's as basic as that. I think that he thinks he should always be surrounded by kings and princes and queens because that's how important he sees himself as. He sees himself as a king.
Unfortunately, and as I said, because of Keir Starmer has made some atrocious decisions, and he seems to only have one eye on his supporters and on his base. He basically ignores everything else. So the situation is we just look incredibly weak. And the thing is now everyone sees it across the world how incredibly weak we are.
Without a doubt. Oh God, they're just showing, like, my Vision Mix, who's going to be in serious trouble, has just found the pictures that make me feel sick to my stomach, and that is. Yana, you are naughty. That is Keir Starmer giving that letter to Donald Trump. And Trump pretending that he didn't know he was going to get it. It was all just so cringy.
Yeah, so, but you remember when Donald Trump dropped those papers?
Yeah, and he got down on his knees and picked them up.
And he got down on his knees and picked them up. But this is the thing. This is what Keir Starmer is like. If he appeases everyone, but pleases no one.
Oh, that's such a good line. I'm going to steal that.
And that's what he does.
That is such a good line. He appeases everyone and pleases no one. I'm having that.
And that's the problem we've got. And the thing is, because he's managed to do that, we're now obviously in a terrible situation where we are now in this country, where he's looking to appease one part of his base, and he's basically pleasing no one.
You're absolutely right. You really are. That is bang on. And I'm going to pretend I came up with that. But it seems to be true, doesn't it? That even when he was appeasing Trump, he wasn't pleasing him. You know, we could see that there was no long-lasting love affair there, right? It was never going to. It's never been I don't think it's been a special relationship for a very, very, very long time. And the Americans have rather leaned on that as well. They've rather taken advantage of that. Brilliant.